Everyone didn't have time to investigate the cause of Xianyi's death, and they all gathered around. They were very enthusiastic about the sudden appearance of the underground passage, and their eyes were full of hope. Everyone saw this passage as their hope to leave, but Feng Wu knew it wasn't the way out. Bao Bao had already told her that there was a basement below, and it wasn't a passage to the outside world. She didn't tell the AI that she already knew there was no way out. It was Bao Bao who told her to do this. Feng Wu was an obedient girl, and in her eyes, Bao Bao was very smart. Listening to Bao Bao was the right thing to do. Bao Bao was very satisfied with the Feng Wu girl. In the past, the humans who wanted to contract with the wise beast all wanted the wise beast to listen to their orders and do whatever they wanted. It would be best if the wise beast was obedient. There really wasn't a master like Feng Wu who would listen to her own wise beast. Bao Bao liked Feng Wu's personality very much. It wasn't that Bao Bao wanted Feng Wu to listen to him from now on, but it was because having such a master was much better than having a scheming master. Wise beasts were smart enough. Many people thought that the master they liked must be as smart as them. In fact, everyone was wrong about this. Wise beasts weren't interested in those so-called smart people. Smart people always thought too much and did too much. Wise beasts actually liked to live a peaceful and stable life. It was very hard to live with such people. However, Feng Wu, a human who didn't think too much and never asked them to do anything, was very much liked by wise beasts. "Do you think this is the exit?" someone asked expectantly. "It's possible. I feel that there must be an exit below," someone said with certainty and excitement. "Let's go down and see." These people discussed, and the conclusion was to go down and see what was below. Everyone hoped that this was the exit to leave the land of extreme negative energy. However, everyone was destined to be disappointed. This wasn't an exit. Mojiaffrey signaled everyone to be careful with his eyes. There must be unknown dangers in this place. As the team leader of this mission, he made the team lose a person. He couldn't let anyone in the team lose their lives again. Boss Hart also exchanged glances with the man and woman who had been following him. The three of them remained silent. Bao Bao stared at the man and woman behind Boss Hart, and a trace of interest flashed in his eyes. Everyone else was focused on the passage in front of them, so they didn't notice the eye contact between these people. The fire ability user led the way in front, while the others walked behind. With the fire ability user's fireball illumination, all the scenes in the basement appeared clearly in front of everyone. To everyone's disappointment, this wasn't an exit. It was just an underground laboratory. There was a reason why it was called a laboratory. What was the reason? There were some transparent utensils around, and these utensils contained the bodies of some children. These children were no more than 5 or 6 years old at most. They were all innocent and cute, but they died just like that. There were more than a dozen children's bodies here, and each of them was incomplete. Their flesh and blood had been ruthlessly peeled off, leaving only skinless corpses. No one knew what kind of medicine was in these utensils, but it kept the corpses fresh. They didn't turn into a pile of bones because of time. They looked like they had just been skinned. This cruel and terrible scene shocked everyone's heart. Everyone suddenly felt a sense of disgust and disgust towards the owner of this laboratory. No matter who this person was, treating those cute children like this was even more cruel than the devil. Chapter 491. Everyone suddenly felt a sense of disgust and disgust towards the owner of this laboratory. No matter who this person was, treating those cute children like this was even more cruel than the devil. The layout of the entire laboratory was very simple. Aside from some utensils, there was only a large table with a few dolls on it. These dolls were only half-finished products. Seeing these dolls, everyone had some guesses in their hearts, but they were not too sure. The entire laboratory could be said to be clear at a glance. On the large table, there was a thick notebook placed in the center of the table. This notebook had been through many years and was covered in dust. Among the crowd, there was someone with sharp eyes and nimble hands who picked up the notebook and casually flipped through it. From the first page, there was not much recorded. It only said that the owner of this notebook was invited to this ancient castle by a noble. Then there was a description of the ancient castle scenery, as well as a description of the male and female owners. In this notebook, this ancient castle belonged to a noble more than 1,000 years ago. This noble and his wife were very loving. The two of them finally had a cute daughter and naturally doted on her very much. This noble's daughter loved all kinds of dolls, but because those dolls were not realistic enough, this noble's daughter did not have much interest in them. After playing with the dolls for a day or two, she would burn them without looking at them. Then she would look for new dolls and burn them again. This cycle repeated over and over again. On the noble's daughter's 5th birthday, the male owner wanted to give his daughter a special gift, so he invited the most famous craftsman of that time to make dolls. This craftsman was, of course, the owner of the notebook. After the owner of the notebook was invited with a large sum of money, he was required to make a doll that satisfied the young lady before her 5th birthday. If he could not make it, he would never be able to walk out of here alive. The owner of the notebook was only a craftsman who could make dolls. How could he resist a noble? Therefore, he stayed in this ancient castle and tried his best to make a doll that met the young lady's requirements. Unfortunately, the dolls he made were not realistic enough and were very different from real people, so they were not accepted by the noble's family. Helpless, he could only continue. He only hoped that he could quickly make a doll that satisfied the noble's family and then leave this gorgeous cage to return home. He worked very hard, but the things he made could not satisfy this family. He was imprisoned in this laboratory and kept making a breeding doll. He wanted to leave this place and be free. At this time, the servant who came to deliver food to him every day became a little girl of 6 or 7 years old. The little girl was very cute, and her eyes were filled with curiosity and shyness. An idea suddenly popped up in his mind. He recalled a secret technique related to necromancers that he had accidentally obtained in the past. Later on, the little girl disappeared. At the same time that the little girl disappeared, a brand new doll appeared. No one knew what the doll was made of, but they knew that the doll felt just like a real person, making people unable to put it down. Sure enough, this doll was liked by the young ladies of the noble families. The disappearance of a small servant didn't arouse anyone's attention at all. In this ancient castle, it didn't even cause a splash. At the young mistress's 5th birthday party, she made a grand entrance with this doll in her arms. This unique, lifelike doll aroused everyone's interest. After the party, who knew how many people were willing to spend a lot of money to buy a similar doll for their wives and daughters? After many years of living a luxurious life, this noble family's financial situation was far worse than before. The doll in front of him made this noble feel that there was a business opportunity, a chance for his family to advance further. Therefore, the noble didn't let the owner of the notebook go. He even asked the owner of the notebook to make a large number of these dolls for him to sell. Helpless, the owner of the notebook could only tell him that the doll's main material was actually human skin. As it turned out, the owner of the notebook, who was also the craftsman trapped here, had used the skin of the missing little girl and a forbidden necromancy magic book that he had accidentally obtained to create a bottle of doll that had the texture of real skin. The skin on a little girl's body could be made into at most 2 dolls. It was impossible to mass-produce these dolls. When he told the truth to this noble, he thought that he would be reprimanded as a demon or an unscrupulous person. Unexpectedly, the noble didn't say anything. Although he was surprised at first, he didn't show any other expression after that. He even assured him that the noble would help him prepare the children he needed. What he needed to do was to continuously make those realistic dolls. The owner of the notebook couldn't resist this noble. He knew that once he escaped, his family would immediately be in danger. The owner of the notebook couldn't do anything. He could only stay and help the noble make these heinous human skin dolls. After the dolls were officially put on sale, business was very good. They were loved by many ladies. Because the main material used to make these dolls was special, it was impossible to mass-produce them. Therefore, only 30 dolls were made every month. Every time these 30 dolls were released, they would immediately be sold like crazy. With the human skin doll business, the noble family earned a lot of money. They even formed relationships with some other families. Perhaps it was because the level of the forbidden necromancy technique that the owner of the notebook had picked up was too high, but no one on the continent could tell what was different about these dolls. Since no one could tell, this meant that this business could continue. Of course, the noble family was happy. They began to ask the craftsman to make more dolls for them to sell. However, these dolls had to be made from the skin of a child. How could they not make more? The craftsman became more and more upset under the pressure of the noble couple. He wanted to escape more and more. He began to regret using the little girl's skin to make that doll. If he hadn't made a mistake in the beginning, he wouldn't have been forced to do so many heinous things. The coercion of the noble finally reached the end of the craftsman's patience. He didn't want to do such harmful things anymore. He wanted to be free. Other than him and the noble, no one knew that every time a doll was made, the person whose skin and flesh were stripped would not only die, but their soul would also be sealed in the doll. Because one piece of human skin could be made into two dolls, the souls of the children were divided into two halves. Half of the souls of the two dolls were sealed in each. Chapter 492. Apart from him and the noble, no one else knew that every time a doll was made, not only would the person's body be stripped of their flesh die, but their soul would also be sealed within the doll. Since one piece of human skin could be made into two dolls, the souls of the children were split into two halves, with half of the souls of the two dolls sealed within. The souls of the dolls were incomplete, and they were sealed in a terrible state. The souls of the dolls were filled with ruthless killing intent. Once these souls were released, this place would instantly turn into a Jura hell. The man was no longer afraid of death. To him, death was a kind of relief. Every day, he would see the corpses of countless children when he opened his eyes. In his dreams, he would see the souls of the children who had died with their eyes wide open. If he continued to live like this, even if he didn't die, he would go crazy. The man decided to drag everyone in this ancient castle down to hell as revenge for the innocent children who had been killed. Before releasing the souls, he did one last thing. He made the noble's beloved daughter into an exquisite doll. Unlike the other dolls, the noble's daughter's body was only made into a doll. He sealed the noble's daughter's soul within the doll. Then, apart from the doll sealed by the noble's daughter, all the souls sealed within the dolls were released. These souls were forced out, and as expected, they killed everyone in this ancient castle. At the end of the notebook, it was recorded that the man had released all the souls. Then, the noble's family was killed, and he sat in the basement, waiting for these innocent souls to come and kill him. The last record was very messy. It seemed that the man's mood was not as calm as he had written. At the very end, it was written that they had come. They had finally come. It ended just like that. There were no other records after that. The notebook was very thick, but most of it recorded the experimental data he had done. The complete story was interspersed with the experiment notes. It wasn't until the end that the whole story was completely pieced together. The dolls upstairs are actually made of human skin, and there are human souls hidden in the dolls. I knew those dolls felt like real people. There's definitely something wrong with them. Mingxi looked around, but he didn't see any human skeletons. Could it be that the souls of the dead had swallowed everyone here, including their bones? If that wasn't the case, how could they explain the fact that no bones had been found? Mingxi still had a lot of questions he couldn't figure out. Everyone took the notebook and searched the entire laboratory. After making sure that they hadn't missed anything, they left together and sealed the underground laboratory. Although they still did not find any evil spirits, they already knew that there was a suspicious item in the notebook, and that was the doll. Dolls made from human skin tissue. Although Yao Yu said that there was no problem with these dolls after looking at them, through this notebook, it could be seen that these dolls were the most suspicious. After some discussion, everyone came to a decision, which was to destroy the doll. Fengwu followed everyone to the room upstairs where the dolls were placed. She watched as the fire magician used a fireball to burn the dolls. However, after being burned by the fire, the doll was not damaged at all. They did not know if it was their imagination, but they felt that the doll's smile was a little hideous. Originally, after reading the notebook, they felt that these dolls looked gloomy. Now, they felt that there was something wrong with these dolls, and they didn't dare to get close to them. After failing to destroy the dolls after trying all sorts of methods, Zicheng stepped forward. He possessed the extreme purple heavenly sun flame, which was ranked 5th on the heavenly flame list. He wanted to use his heavenly flame to burn the dolls. Not many people knew that Zicheng had the heavenly fire. Although the heavenly fire was a treasure that made people envious, now was not the time to be envious. When one's life was in danger, any kind of treasure would be very difficult to attract. Miss Zicheng, Whether we can get out of here alive depends on you. If we can get out of here alive, we will definitely remember your kindness." Most people looked at Zicheng with gratitude, who came out at this time to reveal that she had the heavenly fire. Zicheng modestly expressed that there was no need for them to be so grateful. Her modesty and unwillingness to take credit for herself greatly increased the favorability of everyone. It was an unexpected gain. Even Caesar, who already had a good impression of her, was looking at her with tenderness. Zicheng found that Caesar's favorability towards her had increased by a little. It seemed that she was very close to 100% favorability. But why did Caesar's brother still have a favorable impression of her? What was wrong with this person? Shozo stood silently at the side, quietly watching these people flatter Zicheng. If they knew that Zicheng was the person who would destroy the world in the future, what kind of expression would they have? After coming to this ancient castle, Shozo had been very low-key. He almost didn't talk much. Standing beside Caesar, he didn't seem to have much of a presence, but many people paid attention to him. No one knew that Caesar hadn't been idle during this period. He had been observing this ancient castle, looking for a way to break through the barrier. After more than 100 years, Shozo had already become a well-known array master. Because he couldn't cultivate, he spent most of his time learning these miscellaneous things, such as array formation, alchemy, and alchemy. He had dabbled in all of them. Moreover, he had reached the peak of a master of his generation. This was also the reason why in the future, when he was just an ordinary person, his family was willing to use precious life-prolonging potions and spiritual fruits for him. This was because he would be more helpful to the family if he were alive than if he were dead. This was the way the world was. Whether one could live a better life than others depended on one's strength. With a certain strength, even if he was just an ordinary person, he could live a better life than those mages and swordmasters. In addition to looking for a way to break through the barrier, Shozo had also been in contact with Irene, wanting to know more about the plot of this place. It was a pity that even Irene didn't know much about this place. This was because that basement didn't exist in the original novel. Naturally, no one knew that there was something wrong with those dolls. It was impossible for Shozo to have a good impression of Zicheng. No normal person would have a good impression of a Terminator. Zicheng couldn't understand why Shozo didn't like her. She had asked Caesar about this in a roundabout way, but Caesar had said that Shozo was indifferent to everyone and didn't dislike her. She couldn't get an answer from Caesar, and she couldn't figure out the answer either. She couldn't figure out why Xiazwa didn't have a good impression of her when she was willing to reveal the secret of her heavenly fire to save everyone here. How could there be such a person who was so difficult to gain a good impression of? This guy only has half of his soul left. If his soul isn't whole, it's impossible to send him into the cycle of reincarnation. How can he not know this? The baby sat on Fengwu's head and watched the show. Other than Fengwu, no one could hear its voice. Where is the other half? Fengwu tilted her head. I don't know, Bao Bao said. Trap. Finally, Yao Yu couldn't hold on any longer. At the last moment, she used a trapping array to trap all these spirits together, making them unable to escape for a while. Miss Yaiwe, are you all right? Miss Yaiwe, what should we do now? Could it be that these things can't be killed? Yao Yu, come over and rest for a while. The last sentence was said by the team leader, Mogwai. Mogwai was still very concerned about his team members. Yao Yu nodded with a pale face. With the help of Irene and Zicheng, she sat on a chair to rest. When she was resting, she took out a bottle of medicine from her space ring and drank it. Under the effect of the medicine, her pale face finally recovered a lot. Her face began to show a healthy red color. Everyone originally had a lot of questions to ask, but seeing that Yao Yu was really tired, they didn't want to pester her to not let her rest. They could only stand at the side anxiously. Everyone, don't be anxious. I was just about to tell everyone the situation. Yao Yu drank the medicine and rested for a while. I believe that everyone has seen it. I originally wanted to send these spirits into reincarnation. Unfortunately, their spirits are incomplete and can't be sent away. I can't even completely destroy them. No matter if we want to completely destroy these spirits or send them into reincarnation, we have to find the other half of their souls. If we can't find it, There is a high possibility that we will never be able to leave here. Yao Yu told everyone the worst situation. She didn't hide anything. In this kind of situation, she couldn't hide it. But we don't know where the other half of their souls are. Someone said softly, whatever, even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground, we have to find the other half. Someone firmly clenched his hand. In order to escape, everyone burst out with great potential and began to look for all the suspicious things in the house. According to the experience of this doll, it was very likely that the other half of the soul was hidden in some inconspicuous object. In order to find the other half, they took down all the decorations and suspicious objects and put them on the ground. Then they let Ziqing burn them with fire. They planned to cast the net on a large scale. No matter what, they had to catch some fish. Otherwise, they would be dead. Finally, everyone's idea was not wrong. After the pile of things was burned, waves of screams were heard. Then, many children who looked exactly like those spirits appeared in front of everyone. They all saw that these spirits came out from a painting. "Don't do anything. Don't hurt us. We didn't do anything." The little girls cried out in grievance. Each of the little girls had tears in their eyes and looked like they were complaining. This person couldn't bear to do anything to them. "How did you all get sealed in the painting?" Feng Wu went forward curiously. She wasn't afraid of being hurt by these spirits. The little girls only saw an expressionless girl suddenly go forward. They were a little scared at first, but after feeling the comfortable aura of the girl, they weren't scared at all. They surrounded Feng Wu enthusiastically and answered Feng Wu's questions. "We couldn't beat them, so we were locked up. If you didn't burn these paintings, we wouldn't have been able to get out." The little girls said, feeling wronged. "They're really bad. Every time someone comes in, they'll kill them. You have to be careful not to get killed." One of the little girls was very worried about Feng Wu's safety. "They're all bad. They want us to merge with them and use their consciousness as the master. They want us to disappear completely." "You know who I am." The little Loli seemed to be very happy. Her eyes squinted happily. "So it is. No wonder she looks different from the other spirits." Irene nodded. She also thought of the problem that Yao Yu thought of. Mingxi pulled Feng Wu's hand and took a step back. This child gave him a very dangerous feeling. This was definitely not an ordinary spirit. Feng Wu stood obediently beside Mingxi. From time to time, she would use her consciousness to communicate with Bao Bao. For example, the two of them were communicating with the little Loli that suddenly appeared. "When we fight later, you have to run faster. This is a boss." Bao Bao said worriedly. "Xiaochun is currently leveling up. He can't protect you. This level of spirit isn't something you can deal with now. I will immediately return to the spirit world. Only that Rainbow Phoenix fellow can save you." "Didn't you say that we can't communicate with the outside world?" Feng Wu blinked her eyes like a curious baby. "Normal methods won't work, but I can. I can. You forgot what Bao Bao is. Bao Bao is a wise beast. In terms of enchantment power, no one is stronger than me. It's a pity that I can leave the enchantment by myself, but I can't bring anyone with me. Otherwise, I would have taken you with me. Now I have to find that Rainbow Phoenix fellow to save you." Chapter 495. Ordinary methods won't work, but I can do it. Have you forgotten what kind of beast I am? I am the wise beast. In terms of the power of enchantment, no one is stronger than me. It's a pity that I can get out of the enchantment by myself, but I can't take others with me. Otherwise, I would have taken you with me. Now I have to find the 7-colored phoenix to save you. The Wise Beast clan had never had much attack power. The power of enchantment was their strongest self-protection ability. When they encountered danger, they could use the power of enchantment to block all the dangers outside. They could also simply pass through the enchantment set up by others. However, the ability to pass through the enchantment could only be used by themselves. They couldn't take others with them. If it could take others out, it would have taken Feng Wu away long ago. There was no need to stay in this place. It was also a mistake. It didn't expect that such a powerful spirit would form in this place. It was afraid that all the people here together wouldn't be enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. After greeting Feng Wu and asking her to take good care of itself, Bao Bao used its ability to pass through the enchantment and return to the spiritual world. It can actually break my enchantment. What is that little thing? Although the little loli was called a big boss by Bao Bao, she didn't have much knowledge. She was only 5 years old when she died. How much knowledge could she have? It was understandable that she didn't know the wise beast, which was very famous in ancient times, or even longer ago. The others didn't know what the little loli was talking about. They each held their weapons and looked at the child in front of them. They didn't dare to look down on her just because she was a child. Ziqing felt a dangerous aura from the child. This feeling was so strong that she couldn't ignore it. She believed in her feelings very much. It seemed that she had to take the last step. Looking at the price in the system store that was so high that it made people want to vomit blood, Ziqing had to clench her teeth and buy the boundary-breaking talisman. She put the boundary-breaking talisman away with heartache. If the situation went wrong, she would immediately use the boundary-breaking talisman to leave this place. Irene secretly paid attention to Ziqing. Seeing her suddenly relieved, she suspected that she had already bought the boundary-breaking talisman to protect herself. It seemed like the key to leaving this place was still Ziqing. Irene secretly gave Xiazhua a look, telling him to keep an eye on Ziqing and not miss the opportunity to leave. As for the others, it would depend on their luck. She couldn't just run out and tell them that Ziqing had a way to leave and that everyone should keep an eye on her. It would be strange if people didn't think of him as a lunatic. Xiazhua noticed Irene's gaze and understood what she was trying to say. He nodded to indicate that he would pay attention to it. Can you guys play with me? I've lived here for so long, and no one wants to play with me. You guys stay and play with me. The little loli clapped her hands excitedly, as if she really wanted someone to stay and play with her. No, we still have things to do and cannot stay here. Can you let us leave this place? If you can, we will be very grateful to you. Yao Yu shook her head, rejecting her suggestion. After hearing Yao Yu's answer, the little loli looked at the others. What about you guys? Don't you want to stay and play with me? Her voice sounded very disappointed. It seemed a little cruel to make such a child sad, but at this time, who would pity a child? Besides, she wasn't a child, but a scary spirit. Everyone shook their heads, indicating that they didn't want to stay and play with her. The smile on the little loli's face disappeared, and her small face became gloomy and scary. If you don't want to play with me, then go down and die. If you die, you can stay and play with me forever, just like the others. The little loli once again showed a cute smile, but this smile in the eyes of others was even scarier than the devil smile. Go to hell, stinky girl. You want to kill me? Let's see if you have the ability. An adventurer holding a knife couldn't help but raise his weapon and slashed at the little loli. Who knew that before his knife could cut the little loli's body, the little girl disappeared in front of his eyes. In less than a second, she appeared behind the adventurer. Caught you. You have to accompany me. The little loli patted the adventurer's shoulder, and in just 3 seconds, the adventurer turned into an ice sculpture. Dead. He actually died so easily. She didn't do anything. She just used her small hand, which was so small that people couldn't raise their vigilance, and lightly patted on the adventurer's shoulder, and the adventurer died. Before he died, he didn't even have time to scream. Too scary, so scary that it made people shudder. In the end, what kind of strength did she have to be able to do this? Everyone took a big step back, and they didn't even think of attacking. At this time, there was only one thought in their mind: escape. They must escape. Yao Yu took a few steps back, and her heart was cold. She had never seen such a powerful spirit. A spirit with such strength was too rare. As an undead, it wasn't easy to have such strength that was stronger than a human. The time needed was unimaginable. She could cultivate to such strength in just more than 1,000 years, which could only prove one point. This child was born with a spiritual body, which was the most suitable physique to become a spirit cultivator. With a super talent in more than 1,000 years, it was not strange that she could cultivate to such a level. This kind of spirit was simply the object that all necromancers wanted to contract the most. If she hadn't been trapped here since childhood and couldn't leave, if she had shown her face to the outside world, she was afraid that all the necromancers would have come to find her. This kind of powerful spirit was the most difficult to find. Getting her meant having more powerful strength. If she met this girl when she was still weak, Yao Yu would have been very excited. However, the time they met was wrong. They met more than 1,000 years later, and this little spirit already had the strength to kill everyone present. At this time, not to mention the contract, whether they could escape was a problem. Yao Yu smiled bitterly in her heart. In the past, she couldn't meet such a spirit. Now that she met it, she could die at any time. How could she not smile bitterly? She had a hunch that this time, all of them would have to give up here. All of them together couldn't be this little girl's opponent. It's your turn. You all stay with me. The little loli clapped her hands, turned her head and smiled at everyone. Let's go. Many people were so scared that they didn't even have the courage to fight with the little loli. They ran away like crazy. They forgot that no matter how they ran, it was impossible to escape from this ancient castle. This ancient castle was like a huge cage that locked all of them inside. Chapter 496. However, they had forgotten that no matter how hard they tried, they would not be able to escape the castle. The castle was like a huge cage that trapped all of them inside. Some people fled in all directions, while others were on guard and did not dare to move forward. They raised their weapons to protect themselves. Those who escaped did not expect that the little loli was not interested in those who stood there motionless. Instead, she was more interested in those who escaped. If they had known earlier, they would not have regretted their decision to escape. Caesar was worried that Zicheng would be in danger. Ever since the little loli showed her amazing lethality, he had been guarding Zicheng, carefully protecting her. Although Caesar's affection for Zicheng was not 100%, it was already around 95%. This showed that he truly loved her. Although Shozo did not know how much Caesar liked Zicheng, he could see that his brother had already taken Zicheng to heart. At the very least, he knew that Caesar would never protect another woman like this. The housekeeper had always been protecting Shozo. Although Shozo had turned from a wastrel into a genius, the housekeeper was still used to protecting this child that he had watched grow up. Shozo was a little disappointed. His brother had changed. At this time, his first thought was not to protect the other members of the family, but to protect Zicheng, an outsider. No wonder in the future, he would betray the family for Zicheng. He would do so many things that hurt his parents and the interests of the family. It turned out that there were already signs of this a long time ago. Although Shozo was disappointed that Caesar ignored the rest of the family for a woman, he still wanted to save him from Zicheng's control. Irene carefully approached Zicheng. She did not dare to be too far away, for fear that she would not be able to escape in time. Although the boundary-breaking talisman could break all enchantments, because this enchantment was too strong, the boundary-breaking talisman could only open a passage for people to escape. Moreover, it only gave people a short time to escape. If they were not fast enough, they would die in this place without any chance to escape. Because she knew this, Irene still put most of her attention on Zicheng when everyone was guarding against the little loli. She didn't dare to relax in the slightest. You must not leave my side later, do you understand? Mingxi told Fengwu worriedly. The Fengwu girl nodded obediently and held Mingxi's hand tightly, indicating that she would not leave. Would the baby be in a hurry? Fengwu was a little worried. No matter how late she was, she also realized how dangerous her current situation was. She didn't want Mingxi to die. The little bun still needed a father. Mingxi hadn't agreed to marry her yet. They couldn't die. They had to go back to see the little bun alive. Fengwu thought seriously. Mingxi had already pulled out his long sword and held it in front of his chest. His other hand was protecting Fengwu. He was fully on guard. Those people who escaped from time to time let out terrified screams. Those people who screamed, everyone knew that they wouldn't be able to survive. Among the people who stayed in the hall, no one noticed Boss Hart and his two attendants. These three people's expressions were much calmer than the others. Especially the man and woman beside Boss Hart, they didn't have the slightest bit of nervousness. Only 5 minutes had passed, but to everyone here, it felt like a century. It's your turn. The little loli came back with an exceptionally happy smile. There was no need to ask about the life or death of those people. It was impossible for them to survive. What do you want to do? Don't make the same mistake again. You killed so many people. In the future when you enter the underworld, You will be sent to the underworld to suffer. Yao Yu tried to persuade the extremely cute child in front of her. If this was a spiritual body with the thoughts of an adult, the possibility of persuasion would be higher. Unfortunately, this was a child. Although everyone said that children were little angels and were the most adorable and kind in the world, because they were still young, the various kinds of darkness in the world didn't have time to pollute them. In fact, it was because children were still young. In their hearts, they didn't have any concept of good and evil. They didn't know what to do and what not to do. They didn't even know what death meant. Sure enough, the little lowly only blinked her eyes in confusion. I don't care about the underworld or the underworld. I only want you to stay and play with me. You sent my playmates away, so in the future, you have to replace them to accompany me. The little lowly announced domineeringly. She didn't think about whether these people would agree or not. This was her world. As long as she wanted, no one could leave this place. It was very obvious that one should never try to reason with children. If one tried to reason with them, they wouldn't understand what one was saying. You're wrong. You can't continue to kill people. If you continue like this, you can forget about reincarnating forever. Yao Yu also had no other choice. She couldn't beat her. She could only hope to dispel the killing intent in this child's heart through communication. What nonsense are you talking about? I don't understand. Why can't I kill people? Father told me before that as long as I like, I can do anything. This child's 3 stages were obviously not right. But thinking about it, a person who thought of using a child's skin to make a doll to earn money, how could he teach a normal child? You don't have to say anymore. This child won't listen. At this time, a weak white figure suddenly flew out from a landscape painting in the hall. This figure was obviously a spiritual body. Moreover, it was a very weak spiritual body. From the figure and appearance, it could be seen that this spiritual body should be a middle-aged man when he was alive. The man's face revealed a simple and honest look, and from his eyes, he seemed to be a little weak. You're the bad guy. Aren't you going to hide? Humph. The little lowly coldly snorted. She seemed to hate the man in front of her. Everyone was curious about the identity of this spiritual body that suddenly appeared. This couldn't be the little lowly's father. From the little lowly's words just now, they could tell that the little lowly and her father's relationship was quite good. If this spiritual body was really the little lowly's father, the little lowly definitely wouldn't have such an attitude. Then the question was, who was this person? You're the one who made those dolls? Mingxi suddenly had a guess. Then, he asked suspiciously. The man bitterly laughed. You guessed it. That's right. Those dolls were made by me. I am a sinner. If I knew that I would end up like this, I wouldn't have agreed to make those dolls. You are indeed wrong. You were wrong from the beginning. You couldn't do that family's request and couldn't leave the dolls. Although this is very pitiful, you shouldn't have hurt innocent people for your own selfish reasons. You created such a cruel human skin doll. Chapter 497. You're wrong. You've been wrong from the very beginning. You couldn't do what the family wanted, and the doll couldn't leave. Although this is very pitiful, you shouldn't have harmed an innocent child for your own selfishness and created such a cruel human skin doll. When Mingxi saw the notebook, he was very disgusted with the owner of the notebook. Although all the evil started because of that noble, the person who created the dolls was not innocent. Compared to that noble who used his power to oppress others, the doll's creator's crimes were not light. The first time he used a child's skin to make a doll, no one forced him to do so. The reason he used a child to make a doll was all his own idea. How could someone who could think of using human skin to make a doll be truly innocent? No matter how much he regretted it later, he would not give him a shred of sympathy. I am indeed not worthy of sympathy. People like me should have killed myself. Otherwise, I would have harmed so many innocent children. The man's eyes were full of regret. He deeply regretted his past sins. He regretted it. If he had not agreed to help make these dolls, perhaps he would not have ended up like this. He thought that he could use his own death to atone for his sins. After his death, he realized that his sins were not so easy to atone for. His soul suffered endless torment every day after his death. Those children hated him and imprisoned his soul in this place. He could not leave and could not reincarnate. He could only suffer unimaginable torture every day. For more than 1,000 years, he saw many people die in this place. He also saw the souls of the dead imprisoned by the children's souls. After more than 1,000 years, who knew how many souls were imprisoned in this place? They wanted to leave every day, but they could never do it. Just like him, these children were very hostile to adults, especially men. And the culprit of all this was him, the creator of this tragedy, the person who should never reincarnate. Why did you come out? The little Loli was unhappy. She felt that her game was interrupted. She had not played enough with those people. She wanted to put them all into dolls. Then, they could stay and play with her forever like the others. Miss, please don't hurt them anymore. Let them go, the man said carefully. It was not that he wanted to let these people go out of kindness, but he had a very bad premonition, especially towards the blonde man. That man gave him a very powerful and terrifying feeling. If that feeling didn't come from his power, then it must have come from his bloodline. He really didn't want to provoke a human with a powerful bloodline inheritance. He still felt very guilty towards the young Mississippi. He had turned an innocent and willful child into a demon. Since the young Miss misfortune was caused by him, in order to make up for it, he didn't want the young Miss to provoke an existence that she shouldn't provoke. Letting these people go was for her own good. If she didn't let them go and something happened to them here, the young Miss would definitely be in trouble in the future. The little Loli didn't understand the man's good intentions. She just pouted unhappily. You don't need to care about what I do, bad guy. The little Loli unhappily waved her hand, and the man's spirit body slammed into the wall. A spirit body didn't have a physical body and shouldn't be hurt by anything tangible. He didn't expect that the little Loli's gentle wave would cause him to slam into the wall and injure him quite badly. The man's spirit body's color dimmed a bit. His originally faint shadow became even weaker. Mind your own business. The little Loli pouted and ignored the middle-aged man's spirit body. Instead, she looked at Ming Shi and the others with great interest. It's your turn now. You all have to stay and play with me. The little Loli hugged the dolls and clapped her hands happily. Her small mouth let out a giggle. Her chubby little face was indescribably cute. It was just that no one was in the mood to appreciate her cuteness right now. This clearly cute little face was as scary as a demon in the eyes of others. Let's play ghost catching people. Those who are caught by ghosts will also become ghosts, the little Loli happily decided. I'll be the ghost. You all have to be careful. As soon as her voice fell, her figure disappeared. When she reappeared, she was in Caesar's team. A young man was hit. The man screamed in panic. It was too late for him to run. Almost instantly, he was frozen into an ice sculpture. Go stay in the painting. With a wave of her small hand, a cold wind blew in the room. At this time, they saw a shadow floating with the wind. Then, a portrait appeared on the wall. As the shadow entered, the portrait gradually took shape. After a few seconds, there was a figure on the blank painting. This person was the young man who had just been killed. Loveman. The others who were familiar with the deceased all cried out in pain. They couldn't save their companion. Everyone's hearts were dominated by unwillingness and hatred. They were unwilling to die in this place. They didn't want to die in the hands of such an undead. At this moment, everyone's heart was filled with killing intent. Kill her. You must kill her. If you don't kill her, all of them will become the same as the dead Loveman. Raising the weapons in their hands, they no longer passively dodged. Instead, they took the initiative to attack. This is too fun. Look at how I catch you. The little Loli didn't understand the tragic feelings of these people. Instead, she excitedly clapped her small hands. She seemed to be very happy. Kill her. Kill this monster. Kill. A group of people held swords and staves and rushed towards the little Loli who was smiling sweetly. Yao Yu's heart was filled with despair. It was useless. This was a spiritual body. Other than undead magic, there was also light magic. No magic or physical attack would have any effect on the spiritual body in front of them. And among them, other than her, there wasn't a necromancer. As for light magic, she looked in the direction of Ming Shi. She knew that Ming Shi had a talent for light magic. It was just that he rarely used light magic. She didn't know what level Ming Shi's light magic had reached. Now, she didn't care so much. Junior Ming Shi, attack with me. Yao Yu used undead magic and chanted a curse. Okay, Ming Shi responded. The sword in his hand was replaced with a staff. He rarely used magic. Compared to magic, swordsmanship was his most proficient skill. Chapter 498. Fengwu girl stepped aside and looked at the scene in front of her worriedly. What should she do now that her baby was not back yet? Because Xiaochun had purified a lot of evil spirits last time, he was leveling up and couldn't come out to help her now. What should she do? Without Xiaochun's help, no matter how fierce Fengwu girl's fighting chi was, it was impossible for her to do anything to the undead. After all, she was not a real necromancer. Without the help of the pure sword, even Fengwu girl couldn't do anything to the little lowly. Ming Shi's light magic and Yao Yu's necromancy magic couldn't defeat the little lowly, but they bought some time for everyone. After the attack just now, even if they didn't want to admit it, they had to admit that their attacks were useless. This discovery made them desperate. At this time, Ziqing suddenly moved. Everyone, step back. I have a way to escape from this place, Ziqing said. After thinking about it again and again, Ziqing decided to take out the boundary-breaking talisman. This was an opportunity to gain a lot of favorability points. If she could save these people this time, she would definitely gain a lot of favorability points. At that time, she would definitely be able to make up for some of the points she had lost. Hearing Ziqing say that she had a way to leave, everyone's eyes lit up. Everyone felt a glimmer of hope in front of them. They had no time to distinguish whether Ziqing's words were true or false. They just wanted to live. Naturally, they couldn't wait to seize the only chance to live. Miss Ziqing, what is your way? Please tell us. Everyone spoke with a trace of caution. The way they looked at Ziqing had changed. Irene was a little surprised. She didn't expect Ziqing to be willing to take out the boundary-breaking talisman. Wasn't she afraid that the system would be exposed? But thinking about it, as long as one didn't transmigrate, who would think that a person would be bound to a system? Unless another transmigrator came, who would think of this? The others would probably only think that Ziqing had encountered some kind of opportunity. How could they possibly think of a system? They probably couldn't even think of what a system was. This talisman is called the boundary-breaking talisman. It can break through all barriers. However, this barrier is too strong. This boundary-breaking talisman can't break it completely. It can only open a passage. The passage will only last for about 3 breaths of time. If you want to leave, you have to pass through the passage within 3 breaths of time. Ziqing said. Then what are we waiting for? Miss Ziqing, hurry up and open the passage. Let's go now. Someone could not wait any longer. Who would want to stay in such a terrifying place? If they could leave, of course they would want to leave immediately. Were they waiting to be turned into an ice sculpture? Not yet. Ziqing shook his head. When the passage is open, we can't be disturbed. If she attacks, I'm afraid we won't be able to escape in time and we'll all die here. Everyone looked at each other. This meant that someone had to stay behind to be cannon fodder and attract the attention of that terrifying evil spirit. Otherwise, no one would be able to leave. But who would be the cannon fodder? Everyone looked at each other. No one wanted to be the cannon fodder. Looking at Ming Shi and Yao Yu who were fighting with the little lowly, everyone's eyes lit up. Wasn't there a good candidate? As long as the two of them delayed the evil spirit, they would have the hope of escaping. In order to survive, the selfish side of human nature was infinitely magnified. Seeing what these people were thinking, Mojiaffre's face turned ugly. These two people were part of their team. Moreover, Ming Shi's identity was not ordinary. Before leaving the school, the teacher had told him to protect Ming Shi. He must not let anything happen to him. Although he did not know why the teacher was so protective of Ming Shi, it did not stop him from guessing. He could imagine that Ming Shi's identity was not ordinary. Even the school's teacher did not want to offend the power behind him. Skycliff, who had always had the best relationship with Ming Shi, stared at these people with unkind eyes. They actually wanted to leave Ming Shi behind to cover their retreat. They really dared to think and dare to do it. Ming Shi was the future king of the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom. These people dared to use the future 4 imperial emperors as cannon fodder? How audacious. Ming Shi and Yao, you were still concentrating on dealing with the little lowly evil spirit. They did not know that the two of them had been abandoned. In the minds of these people, there was nothing wrong with sacrificing 2 people to save more people, and only the 2 of them could deal with this evil spirit. If they had the ability to do so, they wouldn't mind sacrificing themselves. This was purely because this matter did not fall into their hands. Of course, they did not feel any pressure thinking this way. If they were really left behind to be cannon fodder, they would be a ghost. Miss Yao Yu and the others are the students of Notre Dame du Starlight. They must have the mentality of sacrificing themselves to save others. They will definitely agree to stay behind to help us. Someone said as if it was a matter of fact. Mo Geoffrey and the others did not look good. It seemed like these people were determined to leave Ming Shi and the others behind in order to survive. You guys really dare to dream. You are so noble. Why don't you stay behind to block? Huozhua looked at the person who spoke with disdain. I want to, but I am not a necromancer. Even if I want to block, I have to be able to. The person who spoke became more and more confident. Then why should Ming Shi and Yao Yu stay? Skycliffe's cold voice came. Even in this kind of life and death situation, he was still so cold. There was not a trace of superfluous expression. As long as they stay, all of us can live. Isn't this reason enough? Do you want all of us to die together? Right now, as long as the 2 of them are willing to make a small sacrifice, all of us can live. Of course they will agree to such a profitable thing. Do you have any shame? Irene rolled her eyes. She did not want to see these people's ugly faces anymore. Donard stood silently on the side without saying anything. He wanted to live, but the only way to do so was to sacrifice 2 of his teammates. Although he didn't have a particularly deep friendship with these 2 people, they were still from the same school. Everyone had gotten into the top 10 of the extreme survival competition together and had come here together. How could he just watch as the 2 of them were left behind? However, if he did not leave Ming Shi and the others behind, the rest of them would die. What should he do now? He was confused, so he did not say a word. He left it to Mo Geoffrey, who was the leader of the team, to decide. Even losing their lives is a small sacrifice? Irene was speechless. If death was not a big sacrifice, then what was? They won't necessarily die. Maybe they are lucky enough to survive. Someone said again. However, this voice sounded unspeakably guilty. Chapter 499. Irene directly laughed at his face. Fengwu girl stood at the side and looked worriedly at Ming Shi, who was already fighting with the little lowly. Then she looked at these people who wanted to abandon Ming Shi and run away. These people were too bad. Master said that those who run away in the face of battle are not good men. You guys go now. Fengwu said expressionlessly. Irene was stunned. Now is not the time for a girl to throw a tantrum. Do you really want your sweetheart to be cannon fodder? Fengwu, don't make a fuss. Mo Geoffrey's face sank. He also thought that Fengwu was throwing a tantrum, but now was not the time to throw a tantrum. Ming Shi and the others were about to be abandoned. How could you make a fuss like this? If they really left, Ming Shi and Yao, you would really be left here to die. Even Skycliffe looked at her disapprovingly. He felt that she shouldn't throw a tantrum at Ming Shi's safety. You want us to go? Xiao Wu, what do you mean by this? Zicheng was a little silly. Didn't you guys want to go? Fengwu was puzzled. Didn't they want to go? She already told them to go. So why were they still unhappy? You also agree to let the 2 of them stay behind to defend? Someone asked. They all knew that Fengwu was with Ming Shi and the others. Moreover, they suspected that she was in a relationship with Ming Shi. Sure enough, husband and wife were birds in the same forest. When faced with disaster, they would fly separately. See, this was it. When she heard that there was a chance to live, she was even willing to abandon her lover. If you guys want to go, then go. I will accompany Ming Shi. Fengwu said seriously. Bao Bao should be back soon. Bao Bao said that Rainbow Phoenix would have a way. At worst, they could wait for Bao Bao to come back and then go together. No way. This girl wanted to stay and die with that youth. This was true love. The group of men sighed incessantly. They felt a little embarrassed that they had imagined her to be a woman who would fly off on her own in the face of disaster. Why couldn't they meet a woman who was willing to live and die with them? Moreover, she was such a beautiful woman with outstanding looks and character. I'll stay too. It was impossible for Skycliff to leave Mingxi behind. They could see that now they had no choice but to agree to let Mingxi and the others stop lie because among everyone, only Mingxi and Yao Yu had the strength to do so. Even if they didn't want to admit it, it was the truth. He couldn't possibly let everyone stay behind and die together. Skycliff didn't care what others thought. He couldn't leave his companions behind and escape by himself. Skycliff, go with them. Mingxi suddenly turned around and shouted. Although he had been fighting against the little lowly evil spirit, he was still at a disadvantage. This evil spirit had cultivated for more than 1,000 years and was born with a spiritual body. Although his light magic could restrain such evil spirits, it was not very effective against this little lowly. Even Yao Yu's death magic did not have an obvious effect on her. It was obvious that this evil spirit's realm was far higher than the two of them. Mingxi estimated that if this evil spirit's strength was compared to a human strength, this evil spirit would have the strength of a warlock saint at the very least. With so many people surrounding her, it would be useless. Besides him and Yao Yu, no one else's attack would have any effect on her. If Xiao Wu's pure sword was still around, his chances of winning would be much higher. Unfortunately, Xiao Wu's pure sword was in the process of upgrading and couldn't be used at all. Mingxi could only smile bitterly. He couldn't hold on for much longer. With his current strength, he still couldn't fight against a warlock saint. Instead of everyone staying behind and dying together, it was better to let those who could leave. There was no need to stay and die together, right? Senior, you should leave too. I'll hold on, Mingxi said calmly. Everyone could tell that Mingxi was planning to sacrifice him to help everyone. This made everyone feel a little touched. At the same time, they admired his character. Yao Yu didn't expect Mingxi to let her go. Earlier, Mingxi was not the only one who had been paying attention to the evil spirit. She had heard Ziqing say that she had a way to leave. However, she was busy fighting against the evil spirit now. It was impossible for her to run over and see what was going on. When she heard that those people wanted her and Mingxi to be cannon fodder, she was unwilling to accept it. She was not a hero. She did not have such noble sentiments to sacrifice herself for others. How many people could really give up their own life to seek a chance of survival for others? She believed that most people would not be able to do it. Seeing Mingxi let her go, Yao Yu felt some admiration for this junior brother of hers. A strange warmth flowed through her heart. Ziqing, do it, Mingxi said faintly. There was no despair or resentment in his eyes. His eyes were so calm. It was so calm that it was as if staying here was not waiting for death, but staying as a guest. Mingxi, have you really decided? Mo Geoffrey asked in disbelief. Mog Philip and Skycliff's characters were somewhat similar. Along the way, he rarely saw his face change. His face was always calm. This was the first time he had seen him lose his composure like this. Take Xiao Wu away. Mingxi looked at Feng Wu. He wanted to protect this girl. However, he did not have the strength to protect her anymore. He hoped that the next time they met, she would still be fine and not injured. Okay, Mog Philip sighed. This was Mingxi's own decision. He knew that he would be letting down his teacher. However, he had no other choice. Sacrificing one person or everyone dying together, the answer to this question was very obvious. He believed that everyone would choose to sacrifice a small portion of people to save the majority of people, no matter how painful this choice would be. As the leader, he could not protect his own team members. Goth was like this. Mingxi was also like this. He had failed in his duty. Seeing him agree, Mingxi's heart was slightly relieved. Feng Wu looked at him stubbornly. Her eyes were very firm. She was not leaving. No matter what he said, she would not leave. She wanted to stay with Mingxi. You can't leave. The little lowly was a little angry. Why did these people want to leave her? She wanted them to play with her. The little lowly was not tall. Her attacks were fiercer. Mingxi was having a hard time dealing with her. At this time, he pushed Yao Yu away from the battle. At the same time, Ziqing activated the boundary-breaking talisman. A passage that only two people could pass through at the same time appeared. The moment the passage appeared, everyone leaped towards the newly formed passage. Everyone raised their speed to the highest. Mog Philip pulled Fengwu. He wanted to take her with him. However, Fengwu lightly tapped on Mog Philip's arm. His arm suddenly felt numb. After that, he was pushed into the passage by Fengwu. At the same time, although Skycliff was close to the passage, he did not go inside. He used his actions to prove that he was not joking when he said he would stay. He really wanted to stay. At this time, Fengwu pushed him from behind into the passage that was about to disappear. Chapter 500. When Skycliff felt himself being pushed into the tunnel, it was already too late. The tunnel closed before he could react. Before it closed, he only had time to see Fengwu's small mouth slightly open as she said something. Mingxi said to let you go, the expressionless girl said. Skycliff desperately resisted the urge to roast her. Did you forget that Mingxi also said to let you go? The Fengwu girl really did forget. She selectively chose to forget what she didn't want to hear. Only when the tunnel completely closed did Mingxi realize that Fengwu didn't leave. His heart was shocked. His heart was filled with joy and anger. He clearly told her to leave. Did she know what she had to face if she stayed? Seeing Fengwu's persistent eyes, his heart softened and he couldn't even get angry. Mingxi, don't be afraid. I'll stay with you. Fengwu seriously looked at Mingxi as she spoke. Why are you willing to stay with him? The little lowly suddenly stopped and her eyes were filled with envy and curiosity. Why was this human willing to stay with this golden-haired man? Was it because he was handsome? Even if the little lowly was a spirit, she still knew how handsome Mingxi was. At least, whether it was before or after death, she had never seen a man more handsome than Mingxi. He is my son's father. Of course I want to stay with him. Fengwu looked at the little lowly and seriously said. Fengwu had already decided that Mingxi was Mingxi's father. In Fengwu's heart, they were husband and wife. Her master said that husband and wife should never leave each other, so of course she couldn't leave Mingxi. Moreover, Fengwu's heart didn't want to leave him at this time. Is it like this? The little lowly tilted her head in confusion. Fengwu nodded. Then are you willing to stay with me? The little lowly's eyes were filled with expectation. No. Fengwu shook her head honestly. Xiaoyi was still with the vice president. She couldn't abandon her little bun. If you don't want to, then you can stay in the painting and accompany me forever. The little lowly's face darkened and her voice suddenly became cold. She no longer had her previous loveliness and cuteness. Without a word, the little lowly began to attack the two of them crazily again. Moreover, these attacks were all directed at Fengwu. It seemed that Fengwu's rejection had angered the little lowly. Mingxi helped Fengwu block most of the attacks. Although Fengwu couldn't beat the little lowly, she was agile enough to dodge. The middle-aged man, who had long been forgotten, stood at the side anxiously. However, he knew that no matter what he said, no one would listen to him. Mingxi's forehead was covered in sweat as he struggled to block the opponent's attack. He wasn't a proper necromancer, and it wasn't easy for him to fight against a spirit with deep resentment. Most of the time, his attacks could only be used to block and couldn't be effective on the opponent. The little lowly sneered and her attacks became faster. At this time, she took advantage of a gap and slapped Fengwu. Mingxi was scared out of his wits when he saw this. He knew the consequences of being hit by this palm. Thinking that the girl in front of him would become an ice sculpture and her soul would be sealed in the painting, his heart ached unbearably. Just when Mingxi thought that a tragedy was about to happen, an inconceivable scene occurred. The little lowly suddenly let out an ear-piercing scream. That voice sounded incomparably painful, and there was also a deep fear in it. With a whoosh, the little lowly suddenly turned into a stream of light and disappeared from the living room. It seemed that she had discovered a terrible existence and quickly escaped. Mingxi's face was filled with the word dumbfounded. Why was it like this? Xiaochun woke up? Of course, Xiaochun couldn't have woken up so quickly. The one who attacked was Pure Flame. As Pure Sword's good friend, Pure Flame naturally knew how much Pure Sword liked Fengwu as its master. So when it sensed that Fengwu's life was in danger, it immediately attacked without hesitation. The moment the little loli's attack hit Fengwu, pure flame appeared and burned the little loli. The little loli had killed so many people that the sins on her body were too deep. When pure flame appeared, the little loli immediately felt as if she was being burned by the flames of hell. It would be strange if she didn't scream after being burned like this. Fengwu really thought that she was going to die at that moment. That feeling of approaching death made her whole body turn cold. It wasn't the first time that Fengwu had encountered a situation like this, but it was never this scary. It made her heart stop. Little Flame, thank you. Fengwu knew who saved her and sincerely thanked Pure Flame. Pure Flame, who had turned into a palm-sized person, nodded proudly and flew back into Pure Sword's body in the next second. Pure Flame was different from Pure Sword. It didn't recognize Fengwu as its master. It only stayed by Fengwu's side because it was good friends with Pure Sword. When Fengwu was in danger, it would help, but it was impossible for Fengwu to command it. Xiaowu. Mingxi was so scared that his heart almost stopped. When he came back to his senses, he realized that his back was drenched in sweat. He took a big step forward and pulled Fengwu into his arms. Feeling the warmth of Fengwu's body, he felt his heartbeat slowly return to normal. Mingxi, it hurts. Fengwu pushed Mingxi in discomfort. Why is he hugging me so tightly that I can't breathe? Fengwu thought confusedly, but her little face was expressionless. She still looked so paralyzed. Sorry, I hurt you. Mingxi coughed lightly and slowly let go of Fengwu. In that instant, he really didn't want to experience the feeling of his heart stopping a second time. The surroundings were still cold. Mingxi pulled Fengwu to sit at the side. The little loli had already escaped, but they didn't know when she would come back. As long as she was here, they couldn't relax. Come here for a moment. I want to ask you a question. Mingxi looked at the spiritual body that had been cowering in the corner. This spiritual body was the spiritual body of the middle-aged man who was injured by the little loli. You, what do you want to ask? He wasn't like the little loli who had extraordinary talent. In just a little over 1,000 years, he had cultivated to such a level. One had to know that the cultivation of a spiritual body was much harder than that of a human. Because he was bullied by the little loli all year round, his strength couldn't improve. He was already a spiritual body that had lived for more than 1,000 years, but he was still so weak. That child, where's her father? Why haven't I seen them? This was something that Mingxi didn't understand. Even the craftsman who made the dolls was still here, so why weren't the child's parents here? They were eaten by those children. Back then, he released the children's spiritual bodies so that they could take revenge with their own hands. He knew that he would be killed, so he was already prepared to die. However, he didn't expect that the children's spiritual bodies that were made into dolls would be so cruel. Not only did they want to kill him, they also wanted to eat his soul. Later, the little loli wanted to keep him alive to play with, so she kept him alive, allowing his soul to survive until now. Chapter 501. When he first released those spirits, he had already expected that those children would take revenge on him. He could also imagine that whether it was him, the young mistress parents, or everyone else in the castle, they would all be killed by those spirits. None of them would be able to survive. However, he did not expect the hatred in the children's hearts to be so deep that they even wanted to tear their spirits apart and eat them. Speaking of which, he was the only spirit body that was still alive among all the participants after that incident. Then why are you fine? Fengwu asked curiously as she nestled in Mingxi's arms. The man smiled bitterly. Missy hates me. She wants me to stay and slowly be tortured by her. He deserved all of this. He could not blame anyone. He did not hate Missy. Let me ask you again. Was the first woman to die here killed by an evil spirit sent by your Missy? Back then, Regina's appearance when she died had always made him feel strange. After that, many things had happened and many people had died. However, those people had all died in the same way. They had all been killed by the extremine aura. Only Regina, who was the first to die, looked different from the others. He suspected that there was something fishy about this. The ones who killed Regina were probably not the undead. The undead did not need the blood of the living. There were only two things that needed the blood of the living. One was the blood race, and the other was the Shura race. The blood race feared sunlight, and the Shura race feared the aura of the human world. Although the possibility of these two races appearing in the desert was not high, it was not impossible. Whether it was as he guessed, only this spirit that had lived here for thousands of years could answer him. That girl, she really wasn't ordered to be killed by Eldest Mississippi. Eldest Miss hates us men the most because the children we caught were all little girls, and the ones who killed them were all men. Therefore, those children hated men the most. In their hearts, men are not good people. They are bad people who will kill them. That's right. That's why every time someone breaks into this place, First Miss would let the others kill the men first before killing the women. If that girl called Shinny hadn't taken the doll that First Miss had left behind, First Miss wouldn't have killed her so early. Who killed Regina? Is he one of us? Ming, she asked. I don't know who she is. None of you have ever called her by her name, but she's easy to recognize. She's been wearing a cloak the whole day and has never shown her face. By the way, beside that woman, there was always a man who massaged like her. The middle-aged man thought for a moment before replying. When Regina died, he had seen it. However, since these humans wanted to kill each other, it had nothing to do with spirit bodies. Naturally, he had not thought of stopping them. Furthermore, he had been in the painting for a long time. If he had not been responsible for these outsiders coming here and preventing the young lady from having the time to care about him, he would not have been able to come out of the painting so easily. Ming Shi's eyes darkened. It was actually the woman beside Boss Hart. Among all of them, only the man and woman beside Boss Hart were dressed like this. Is there anything about that woman that makes you feel strange? Ming Shi asked again. Something strange? The man thought for a moment. There is something strange. That woman can suck blood. After she killed that woman called Regina, she sucked all of her blood. It doesn't seem like something you humans would do. It's more like the legendary blood race. Although the Shura race also liked blood, they preferred to smear blood all over their bodies instead of sucking blood directly. As expected, Ming Shi recalled that there were many blood race hiding in the continent recently. The blood race seemed to be on the verge of making a big move. The biggest possibility was that they wanted to break the barrier outside Blood Moon Forest. The blood race wanted to unify the continent. They wanted to make all humans their food for more than just a day or two. This time, the blood race that had infiltrated the continent had all escaped when the barrier cracked. It was likely that those fellows who had escaped were already restless. After asking all the questions he wanted to ask, Ming Shi dismissed the spirit body. Only Ming Shi and Feng Wu were left in the hall. Ming Shi let Feng Wu lean into his embrace. Feng Wu was a little sleepy as she blinked her eyes. Ming Shi's embrace was so warm that it made her want to sleep. Sleep, I'll guard you. Ming Shi stroked Feng Wu's little head and said gently. No matter why Feng Wu was willing to stay, he was still touched. At this moment, hugging her, he felt his heart soften. Feng Wu shook her little head. I'm not sleeping. Wait for Bao Bao. Bao Bao went to the spirit realm to look for Little Seven. Once Little Seven is here, we can leave. Feng Wu stared seriously at Ming Shi's brows. Bao Bao went to look for Little Seven? Ming Shi realized that Bao Bao was not with Feng Wu. Feng Wu nodded, indicating that it was indeed so. Looks like our luck is not bad. Ming Shi smiled. Even if Little Seven did not come in the end, he could still protect Bu Wu. It was just that he had to pay a big price. As the crown prince of the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom, he naturally had means to protect himself. However, Xiao Wu was not of the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom's bloodline. It was impossible for him to protect her without paying a price. No matter the price, as long as he could save her, he was willing to pay. Now that they had Bao Bao's help, the chances of them leaving this place together were much higher. While Ming Shi and Feng Wu were waiting for Little Seven and Bao Bao, Mo Geoffrey and the others had already contacted the school. Mo Geoffrey had already guessed that Ming Shi's identity was not ordinary. Of course, the first thing he did was to contact the school. The school had already sent a necromancer to deal with it. After the arrival of Notre Dame du Starlight's teacher, it was afraid that this place would no longer exist in this world. Irene and Shozo were also very worried about Fengwu's safety. Shozo was especially worried. Fengwu had saved his life. He wanted to save Fengwu, but there was nothing he could do. He could only worry in his heart. He knew that among the people who came to the desert wasteland, there were people from Star Hall. If they were willing to help, would Xiaowu still have a chance? As for the future Lord Moon King, he was not worried. Lord Moon King was the chosen one with the bloodline of God. He was protected by the world's consciousness. It was impossible to kill Lord Moon King. The world's consciousness would protect the future Moon King, but it would not protect Fengwu. Fengwu was the most dangerous. Irene felt that it was a pity. A girl like Fengwu who was willing to live and die with the person she loved, in modern society, could only be found in novels. Chapter 502. Irene felt that it was a pity. A girl like Fengwu, who was willing to live and die with the person she loved, could only be found in novels in modern society. It would be a pity for such a pure girl to die. Erin's heart was filled with regret. The others surrounded Ziqing and thanked her for saving their lives. Ziqing repeatedly told them that they didn't need to be so polite. Those people left their keepsakes to Ziqing before leaving. Ziqing's harvest this time was very good. She gained the favor of most people here. Why most people? People like Skycliff, Irene, Shozo, and the others didn't take her kindness to heart, especially Skycliff. After being pushed out by Fengwu, his face didn't look good. When he was very young, he was chosen to be Ming Shi's personal bodyguard. Then, he was sent to the palace of the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom. He grew up with Ming Shi since he was young. He knew that he was used to protect the future emperor of the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom. But now, he didn't do his job well. Leaving the person he was supposed to protect behind made Skycliff's face look good, although it wasn't his intention to leave. While Skycliff and the others were worried about Ming Shi's safety, Fengwu and Ming Shi had been waiting for a long time. Bao Bao and Little Seven finally arrived. Bao Bao brought Little Seven to the isolated world. Little Seven's innate flame immediately sprayed towards the enchantment that protected the land of extreme Yin. The heavy rain outside stopped because of the fire. A ray of sunlight shone in from outside. The place where the sunlight shone in was obviously the exit that Little Seven had burned. Ming Shi held Fengwu's hand. The two immediately leaped up, wanting to leave through the hole. But at that moment, something strange happened. The little loli, who hadn't shown up before, suddenly appeared beside Ming Shi. Her small hand swatted towards Ming Shi. Little evil spirit wanted to take revenge for being burned by pure flame. She couldn't hurt Fengwu, but how could she not hurt this man? Don't think that I'll let you off so easily after hurting her. The little evil spirit's eyes were filled with hatred. That seemingly soft and weak little hand was already right in front of his eyes. By the time Ming Shi discovered it, it was already too late for him to dodge. He only had enough time to cast a light spell at the little evil spirit. The little evil spirit smiled coldly and allowed the attack to land on its body. At this moment, the little lowly evil spirit's small hand had already slapped Ming Shi's arm. It was just a light pat, but Ming Shi's arm was immediately covered in a thick layer of frost. Unexpectedly, Ming Shi's entire body was frozen. Only his arm was frozen. At this moment, Fengwu grabbed Ming Shi's other hand and pulled him into the hole in the barrier. The little loli could only watch unwillingly as Ming Shi and Fengwu disappeared into the other side of the barrier. She let out an angry roar. That human! How could he not die under the extreme Yin Qi? That was impossible. No matter how much the little loli didn't believe, Ming Shi and Fengwu still managed to escape. When the sunlight shone on Fengwu and Ming Shi's body, this kind of warmth was something that they hadn't felt in a long time. Student Ming Shi. A cry of surprise was heard the moment the two of them landed on the ground. About 2 seconds later, an old man with white hair and beard holding a magic staff ran to Ming Shi's side at a speed that didn't match his age. Ming Shi, Fengwu. Not long after the old man ran over, Mogfiel and the others also surrounded them. There was no one else around them. In order to wait for the teacher sent by the school, Mogfiel and the others naturally couldn't just leave. They had to stay here and wait for the teacher to arrive. Besides, in order to save them, Ming Shi willingly stayed behind to block the evil spirit. After receiving such a big favor, how could they just leave? They had already waited here for a whole day. It turned out that the flow of time inside the barrier was different from outside. They felt that not much time had passed inside, but a whole day had passed outside. This time, the teacher was worried about Ming-Shi and Fengwu's safety. He used a teleportation magic and arrived here within an hour. Although the necromancer came, he couldn't enter the barrier and couldn't save them. Fortunately, they came out on their own. Otherwise, when the teacher opened the barrier, no one knew whether Fengwu and Ming-Shi would still be alive. Ming-Shi's hand. Zicheng saw Ming-Shi's hand turned into a popsicle and covered her mouth in shock. This is extreme Yin-Chi. The necromancer sent by the school also had a change in expression. The extreme Yin-Chi killed people invisibly. If Ming-Shi didn't have the god's blood to protect his body, he was afraid that at this moment, he would have already died. Gigi. Little Seven worriedly flew to Ming-Shi's side and spat out a mouthful of God's fire from her mouth, melting the ice on Ming-Shi's hand. Look, the ice melted, the ice melted. Irene happily shouted. The old mage hurriedly went forward to check on Ming-Shi's injuries. His face still didn't look too good. Teacher, what's wrong with my arm? Ming-Shi felt that even though the ice melted, he still couldn't feel his limbs. Even if the teacher didn't say anything, he guessed that his hand was in some trouble. Maybe if he was unlucky, his hand would be crippled. Many of the nerves in your arm have died. I have to bring you back to school immediately. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid that you won't be able to keep your hand. The old magician said seriously. Then what are we waiting for? Teacher, quickly bring him back. Tang Nuode immediately said. No matter what, Ming-Shi was his savior. Of course, he didn't want his savior to become a cripple. I'll go too. Fengwu held Ming-Shi's uninjured hand and stubbornly said, No, you have to obediently stay here and complete the mission. This mission is very important. We can't fail. I probably need to go home for a while. Although my injuries are serious, my family will find a way. So don't worry about me. Wait for me to come back. Ming-Shi pulled his hand away and patted Fengwu's little head. He was well aware of his own injuries. It seemed that he had to make a trip back to the Silver Moon ancient kingdom. But Xiaowu, this mission was very dangerous. There were also vampires with unknown intentions. He was worried that there would be more unknown dangers on the road. Fengwu looked at Ming-Shi expressionlessly. After a while, she nodded. I'll wait for you to come back. Fengwu said. Okay. Ming-Shi's eyes revealed an indescribable gentleness. The old magician looked at the ambiguous scene between the two and sighed in his heart. He was getting old. Even the next Moon Emperor had a sweetheart. Ming-Shi left. Before he left, he said that he would contact Fengwu and let her know if his fever was getting better. Fengwu stayed with the team and continued the mission with the others. After they left, two white-haired old men came to this place. The little lowly, who stayed in the land of extreme negative energy, suddenly felt her heart palpitate. Ming-Shi left. Fengwu missed him. Ming-Shi said that he didn't know what love was. Ming-Shi said that he liked a lot. She liked Ming-Shi. If she didn't like him, she wouldn't have let him be Xiaoya's father. Chapter 503. But Ming-Shi said that it wasn't love. So what was love? She still didn't understand. Xiaowu, are you worried about Ming-Shi Sr.? Irene leaned over and whispered to Fengwu. I miss him. Fengwu nodded and said seriously. Don't you know how to be shy? Irene was a little speechless. When the mission is completed, we can go back to school, and you will be able to see him then. Although she didn't know how long Ming-Shi would have to recuperate from his fever, this was a magical world. As long as there was a way to treat any injury, it wouldn't be difficult to get better. Really? Fengwu's eyes lit up. I'm not very sure, but I guess it's like this. Irene didn't dare to say anything, so she could only stammer. 10 days later, they came to the place marked on the map. Originally, they didn't accidentally enter the land of extreme negative energy, so they could take out the heart of wood before others found out. But now it seemed impossible. Why was this so? It was because in the heart of wood's sealed land, a small oasis had appeared in the barren desert wasteland. Although there were only a few ordinary plants growing wildly in this small area, there was still a small oasis. But this kind of strange phenomenon couldn't be hidden from people who were interested. Once someone saw it, unless they were a fool, they would be able to guess that there was something wrong with this place. At this time, there were already many people around this place, waiting for the treasure to be unearthed. The Heart of Wood was about to break out of the seal in a few days, and there were so many people around here. It was impossible for them to take the Heart of Wood without leaving a trace. What should we do now? Wajwa saw a large group of people around here and didn't know what to do for a while, so he had to ask Captain Moghead. Wait, it was obviously impossible to open the seal and take away the Heart of Wood in front of so many people. If they wanted to take away the Heart of Wood, it seemed that they had to spend a lot of effort to get the Heart of Wood. Everyone could only stand outside the oasis and wait for the Heart of Wood to break out of its seal. Then, they would be able to obtain the Heart of Wood. This wait lasted for 5 days. 5 days later, the aura of wood element magic in the air shook violently, and the light of wood element magic appeared within a radius of 10,000 miles. Many plants broke out of the ground, and the barren desert suddenly grew many wild flowers and plants. Although these flowers and plants were not expensive, they were a rare sight in the desert wasteland where no plants grew. Just as flowers and trees were growing everywhere, a green water droplet-shaped creature suddenly flew out from the ground. This little thing flew in a certain direction as soon as it appeared. The treasure has appeared. It wants to run. Quickly stop it. Someone hurriedly shouted. Spells flew in the sky. Many people even used flight scrolls in an attempt to grab the Heart of Wood from the sky. Among so many people, very few people knew that this treasure was the legendary treasure that wood-type magicians yearned for the most, the Heart of Wood. In the sky and on the ground, people constantly joined in to try to catch the Heart of Wood. They might not know what kind of treasure it was, but they didn't need to know immediately. This treasure had to be in their hands first. As for what kind of treasure it was, they could slowly study it later. Go. Jeffrey gave the order, and everyone in the team chased after the Heart of Wood. When Zicheng saw the Heart of Wood for the first time, she had a feeling that it should be hers. It was something that belonged to her, just like the Heart of Water. It belonged to her. This feeling came out of nowhere, but she deeply believed in this feeling. Irene noticed that Zicheng was secretly forcing out blood essence. She wanted to secretly form a contract with the Heart of Wood. It was no wonder that in the novel, Zicheng would so coincidentally gain the favor of the Heart of Wood and take the initiative to form a contract with her. It was not the Heart of Wood that took the initiative, but Zicheng. In the original novel, there was not much description of Zicheng forming a contract with the Heart of Wood. She only now understood the method that Zicheng had used. She snorted disdainfully and quietly followed behind Zicheng. On the surface, she was helping Zicheng, but secretly, she stopped Zicheng from forming a contract with the Heart of Wood several times. Zicheng was secretly annoyed, but there was no way he could vent it on Irene. If she scolded him, wouldn't it be a confession? At this time, Caesar and the others were also busy collecting the Heart of Wood. With the Heart of Wood, there would be at least one more wood element warlock saint in the family. One more warlock saint was an absolute temptation to any family. The strength of a clan was directly related to the number of experts in that clan. Whichever clan had more experts, that clan would have more authority to speak. Shozo could allow anyone else to obtain the Heart of Wood, but not Zicheng. He could not let this world be destroyed in Zicheng's hands. Irene was by Zicheng's side from time to time, and whenever Caesar made a move, he would also secretly hinder him. Caesar did not realize that his own younger brother was guarding against him. At this moment, he was still protecting Zicheng and snatching the Heart of Wood. Ever since they left the land of extreme negative energy, Caesar obviously treated Zicheng differently. Shozo suspected that his brother's favorability towards Zicheng had reached 100%. Once it reached 100%, unless Zicheng died or the world was destroyed, it would be impossible to get rid of Zicheng's control. He could not take the risk. If Caesar's favorability towards Zicheng really reached 100%, then there would not be much difference between Caesar and Zicheng. This was because as long as Zicheng gave a hint, Caesar would offer up the Heart of Wood. With Irene and Shozo working together to mess things up, Caesar and Zicheng could not make any progress in snatching the heart of wood. The heart of wood was like a naughty child, flying around in the sky. It wanted to return to the ground, but unfortunately, Caesar and the others had already set up a formation on the ground, so the heart of wood could no longer hide underground. Fengwu followed behind Mojiafri, expressionlessly dodging from time to time those idiots who wanted to catch the heart of wood, but their flying ability was not good enough and almost hit people. There were too many people in the sky. It was simply crowded, and these people all wanted to catch the heart of wood. There were too many people. She couldn't pass. Fengwu blinked and decided to stay put. That little thing was very cute. What if she didn't want to catch it? Stop. Don't run. Quick, block this side. I'm about to catch it. Here, everyone get out of the way. The scene was a mess. The heart of wood was small and agile in flight. It was not easy to catch it. If the 5 elemental stars were so easy to catch, they would have been caught long ago. They would not have waited until now. Everyone set up one trap after another, trying to catch the heart of wood from the sky. Unfortunately, the heart of wood was still flying around in the sky. Although it was blocked by people and could not fly far, its small body was still flying flexibly. Chapter 504. Everyone was busy in the sky for more than an hour, but the heart of wood still stayed in the sky, and no one got it. Caesar signaled the people below to form an array, and he prepared another trap array, intending to trap the heart of wood inside. The heart of wood felt the danger, and directly flew over the crowd into Fengwu's arms. Fengwu suddenly felt something in her arms. Looking down, she saw a small green teardrop-shaped thing, which seemed to be a little shy nestled in her arms. From time to time, it would look at her with shy eyes. Strange, this little guy clearly had no eyes, so why could she feel that she was being carefully looked at? Fengwu never thought too much about things that she couldn't understand. Her small hands hugged the heart of wood, and she was very interested in this round and slightly cold little thing. Hand over the treasure. Fengwu had just hugged the heart of wood when she didn't expect that the people who had participated in the fight from all directions would all surround her after the sudden change of events. Their goal was very similar. They were all here for the heart of wood. Protect Fengwu. Mojiafri shouted, and covered Fengwu with huozhua, blocking most of the people who wanted to rush over and embarrass Fengwu. Zicheng's heart was slightly shocked. He didn't think that the heart of wood would actually fly into Fengwu's arms. No, he couldn't let her run away with the heart of wood. The heart of wood belonged to her. Zicheng quickly ran towards Fengwu. Now that Fengwu had not formed a contract with the heart of wood, she still had a chance. Would Irene let Zicheng succeed? Of course not. Irene had already run over as soon as the heart of wood approached Fengwu. It was not that she wanted to snatch the heart of wood from Fengwu, but she wanted to prevent Irene from running over and playing tricks. She really guessed it right. Irene rolled her eyes and handed a teleportation scroll to Fengwu. She had bought this teleportation scroll at the auction. It could teleport her to a faraway place. Moreover, it could teleport her to a fixed location. Before she entered the desert wasteland, she had set the teleportation location to a small town outside the desert wasteland. As long as Fengwu activated the teleportation scroll, she would immediately be teleported to the town and leave the encirclement of these people. Fengwu looked at the teleportation scroll that was suddenly handed to her and looked at Irene suspiciously. Why did he give her this? Fengwu's eyes seemed to be saying something. Let's go, he said as he stuffed the teleportation scroll into Fengwu's hands. In the next moment, he appeared in front of Fengwu, blocking her path. Afraid that Fengwu would foolishly wait for them in the town, Irene turned around and said, "Leave this place. Don't wait for us. Go back to school immediately." This time, Fengwu understood. After Zicheng determined Fengwu's position, the first thing she suggested was to quickly leave the house and meet up with Fengwu. Irene knew that she had not given up on getting the heart of wood. How could she let her succeed? She suggested to let everyone walk slower and take the others around a few times to avoid being followed by those people. At that time, not only would they not be able to help Fengwu, they would also bring danger to her. Mojiofri expressed his approval of Irene's suggestion. Then the rest of the people were not in a hurry. Every day, they took the trackers around. This leisurely performance made the trackers secretly hate. You guys should hurry up and meet up with that woman. Are you going around in circles to tease us for fun? Those trackers were about to burst into tears. Was it easy for them to follow such a big circle? Was it easy? Don't make fun of people like this. No matter how unwilling Ziqing was, there was nothing she could do. Unless she abandoned everyone and walked away by herself. But this was obviously impossible. If she really abandoned these people and ran away by herself, she was afraid that it would immediately arouse the suspicion of the other people in the team. Unless she killed all of these people. Thinking of this, Ziqing felt a little regretful. When she fell into the land of extreme negative energy, she clearly could have left these people in the land of extreme negative energy. But in order to brush up favorability, she still brought them out. Ziqing regretted it very much. If she knew that these people would block her way, she would rather earn less points to keep all of them inside. After Yao Yu came out of the land of extreme negative energy, she did not find trouble with Irene and the others. Although she did not want to admit it, the reason why she could survive was because of Ming Shi and Ziqing. Every day, she would go to class and take care of the children after class. Her life was very orderly. The only difference was that she couldn't see Ming Shi in school anymore. Ming Shi had returned home. The story of Ming Shi's injury had already spread throughout the school. Donovan had fiercely publicized it for Ming Shi. Skycliffe left with Ming Shi after he left. If he wanted to leave, the school couldn't stop him. If Skycliffe was there, when Fengwu was besieged, there would be an additional fighting force. Unfortunately, Skycliffe's goal was to protect Ming Shi. Everything else was not important to him. That was why he could leave whenever he wanted. No one could stop him. Sure enough, although Skycliffe didn't return to school, he was still given a major demerit. This kind of example of accepting a mission, but changing his mind halfway had to be suppressed. They couldn't let the other good students learn bad things from him. Skycliffe didn't come back. Fengwu would contact Ming Shi through the communication crystal every 2 days. Ming Shi's image from home looked normal, but his hand didn't seem to have recovered. Every time she saw him, it was still wrapped in bandages. Fengwu and the others had completed the mission of bringing back the Heart of Wood. Everyone was awarded a large number of points, which could be exchanged for some useful magic items in school. Fengwu wasn't very interested in these. The points hadn't been used, so she saved them for when she needed them in the future. Time passed by unhurriedly. In the blink of an eye, another 3 months had passed. During this time, the plot of the original novel was still moving forward without Fengwu noticing. Although Ziqing had lost the Heart of Water and Heart of Wood, she had also obtained the inheritance of 2 ancient magicians. For a time, she was in the limelight. Irene was still behind Ziqing, causing trouble for her from time to time. Ever since she knew that Ziqing would destroy this world, even if Irene didn't want to interfere with the female lead, she couldn't do it. If she didn't care about Ziqing, she was afraid that Ziqing would destroy this world before she could ascend to the God realm. She didn't want to be cannon fodder on Heavenly Wind Continent for no reason. Although she didn't have to become the female lead after transmigrating, she didn't want to be cannon fodder either. Because she didn't want to be cannon fodder, Irene became more and more comfortable in causing trouble for Ziqing. But the more she caused trouble, the higher the chance of being discovered. As a matter of fact, Ziqing had already discovered that Irene was intentionally causing trouble for her. During this time, she had been causing trouble for Irene. The two of them causing trouble for each other had already become a common occurrence. From the internal strife to the external strife, the two of them were like fire and water. As Ziqing and Irene were not on good terms, Ziqing's die-hard fans had also caused trouble for Irene, and it was difficult for Irene to be surrounded by people who didn't like Ziqing. Although Ziqing had the favorable impression system, his ability to attract girls was too strong. This made some girls who had their boyfriends stolen very unhappy. Both sides had fought a few times, with both sides winning and losing. All of this had nothing to do with Fengwu. During this time, Fengwu had been very obedient. Calling Ming Shi once every 2 days had already become a part of her daily life. In the dormitory, Rika occasionally causing trouble for her had also become a part of her daily life. During this time, Irene had come to look for Fengwu a few times. Towards Fengwu, this girl who was willing to live and die with the person she loved for love, Irene had some admiration for her. In the school, when Fengwu was in danger, she didn't care about anything else and stayed behind with Ming Shi to wait for death. Everyone was full of admiration for the way she left the chance to live for others. Many boys expressed their envy, jealousy, and hatred towards Ming Shi. Why hadn't they met such an infatuated girl? This world was too unfair. The girl's view of Fengwu had also become much smaller. No matter what her character was like, whether she had given birth to a child or not, at least her feelings for Ming Shi were real. She was willing to die for him. How many people could compare to her heart that was willing to die for him? Hearing that Fengwu was willing to accompany Ming Shi in such a dangerous time, Diane was very touched. However, she wasn't moved to the point that she would withdraw to fulfill Fengwu's wish. She just came to see Fengwu and made a declaration of fairness. Fengwu just blinked her eyes. She didn't understand. In these 3 months, Feng Yinran also didn't idle. Recently, Feng Yinran also didn't idle. After she killed Mildy and O'Brien, she became famous again. Chapter 506. Fengwu just blinked her eyes. She didn't understand. In the past 3 months, Feng Yinran hadn't been idle. After killing Mildy and O'Brien, she became famous again. This time, she became famous because she stole someone else's fiancé. No one knew if it was because she was particularly interested in other people's fiancés. In short, Feng Yinran became famous again, and it was a bad reputation. Feng Yinran also came to Fengwu, but Fengwu didn't like to be with people, so Feng Yinran came less and less. Fengwu didn't have much interest in Feng Yinran's gossip, but other people in the dorm were interested. For example, Annika and Silda were interested in all the gossip in the school. I've seen that man. He's really good looking. He's ranked 3rd in the top 10 of the 4th grade. Why would such an excellent person like him fall for a woman like Feng Yinran? Silda stuffed a biscuit into his mouth. The more he thought about it, the more he couldn't understand. I think so too. What else is so good about Feng Yinran except for her face? There are so many men who like her. They must be blind. Annika nodded in agreement. As a single dog who didn't have any suitors, it would be strange if he liked Feng Yinran when he saw such a woman with a bad reputation who was attractive to men. Fengwu sat on the side with Little Bun obediently. She stuffed biscuits into her and Little Bun's mouth. The two of them ate happily. That man is called Aubrey. He's a famous person in the 4th grade. He's good-looking, and he's also a talented magician. He's proficient in both wind and fire magic. He's one of the most popular men among the top 10 of the 4th grade. It's a pity that he's already engaged to a noble girl. Aubrey's family background is just ordinary. I heard that the girl has been in love with Aubrey since he was young. For him, she even forced her family to get engaged. I didn't expect that she'd still be dumped even after going to this extent. Silda sighed. He felt sorry for the noble girl. That man didn't say that he wanted to marry you. Why did you force yourself on him? You're just looking for trouble. So this is how the marriage is set. Although it is wrong for Aubrey to fall in love with Feng Yinran, his fiancée is not necessarily worthy of sympathy. Who asked her to put herself in such a low position and urged her family to propose an engagement? It is too shameful for a noble. Annika couldn't understand the mindset of the rumored fiancé. How could she throw away her dignity as a noble for a man? That was the content of Annika's conversation with Silder. That day, it was time to talk to Ming Shi again. At night, Fengwu sat on the balcony, enjoying the breeze and looking at the scenery from the other side. Annika said that the fiancé doesn't deserve any sympathy. She doesn't even care about the dignity of a noble. Fengwu honestly told Ming Shi the gossip she heard. Ming Shi was speechless as he listened to Fengwu. He wondered if the girl called Annika would cry if she knew that Fengwu had told her everything. That's all that happened in the past 2 days. Fengwu thought for a moment and couldn't think of anything else that she hadn't said, so she continued. The corner of Ming Shi's mouth twitched slightly. He still remembered the first time Fengwu contacted him. She didn't know what to say at all and just stared at him blankly for a few minutes. In order to give her something to talk about, he asked her to tell him about the interesting things that happened in school every time they talked. He didn't expect this girl to tell him everything that her classmates said. Gradually, as time passed, he got used to Fengwu trying hard to remember what others said before telling him. Every time Fengwu told him what others said, that serious look on her face was especially cute. Xiao Wu. Mingxi looked at Fengwu in shock. She actually fell asleep on the balcony chair. Although it was summer now, sleeping on the balcony would still cause her to catch a cold. Because he was worried, Mingxi called Fengwu a few times. Unfortunately, it was useless. He could only helplessly let her sleep on the balcony chair. That night, Mingxi watched her all the way until dawn. In the past few months, the situation in Heavenly Wind Continent wasn't good. The Blood Clan suddenly appeared everywhere. No one knew where they got someone to refine cloaks that could block the sunlight. As long as one was wrapped in a cloak, one could walk freely in the day. Because of the large number of cloaked Blood Clan members, no one dared to wear cloaks on the streets anymore. They were afraid that they would be mistaken as Blood Clan members and captured. The Blood Moon Forest was once again in a state of emergency. There was a problem with the barrier again. An unknown person broke the seal of the barrier, allowing the Blood Clan members to escape to the human world to do evil. The Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom would once again send people to reinforce the barrier. The Notre Dame du Starlight would also send a large number of students to fight against the Blood Clan on the front line. A large number of 6th and 7th grade students were sent to the Blood Moon Forest. Feng Tianqing, who had always been involved in the defense of the Blood Moon Forest, was also sent to the Blood Moon Forest. Feng Tianqing's daughter, Feng Yanran, was also sent along. The 2nd to 5th grade students were free to sign up for this battle. As long as they participated, they would be rewarded with points. If they performed well in the battle, they would be admitted to the Star Hall. This was a rare opportunity for many commoners. It was not easy for commoners to stand out. They could only rely on the merits on the battlefield to slowly accumulate their reputation. Only with reputation could one become famous in the continent. This opportunity was placed in front of everyone. Although the battle against the Blood Clan might be very dangerous, it was also accompanied by a great opportunity. As long as they could obtain this opportunity, they might be able to reach the sky in a single step and enter the Star Hall. In this world, there were many people who were willing to fight. From the 2nd to the 5th grade, at least half of the people signed up. The remaining half either felt that their family background was good enough that they didn't need to risk their lives to earn merits, or they didn't have confidence in their own strength and were afraid that they would lose their lives when the time came. There were also some who weren't interested in the Blood Breed's invasion this time. In short, at least half of the entire school had left, and these people had all joined the battle against the Blood Breeds. Fengwu also joined the battle against the Blood Clan. As for the reason why Fengwu joined, there was only one reason. It was because she had a call with Mingxi. She knew that Mingxi would also appear in the Blood Moon Forest. This time, the person who reinforced the barrier was still Mingxi. Mingxi's hand had mostly recovered. He would be able to return to the school soon. Fengwu wanted to see Mingxi. She really wanted to see him. That was why she took the initiative to sign up. Originally, Fengwu did not have any interest in this kind of battle. Chapter 507. This was because she had a conversation with Mingxi and found out that Mingxi would also appear in the Blood Moon Forest. This time, the person who strengthened the seal was still Mingxi. Mingxi's hand had already recovered by more than half and would be able to return to school soon. Fengwu wanted to see Mingxi very much, which was why she took the initiative to sign up. Originally, Fengwu did not have any interest in this kind of war. It was even more impossible for her to take the initiative to participate in the war. However, where she could see Mingxi, Fengwu still wanted to sign up. Most of Fengwu's friends had signed up to participate in this war. Even her roommates had also participated. Rika had always been a strong person. Since everyone in the dormitory was participating, how could she not participate? On this day, everyone who had signed up for the war set off towards the Blood Moon Forest. The Blood Moon Forest was the border between the human race and the Blood Clan. At the border between the two races, a powerful seal was set up. Later on, there was a problem with the seal. Large numbers of Blood clan members flooded into the human race's territory and fed on human blood, bringing endless danger to the human world. Mingxi had once participated in the repair of the seal. That time, the repair was very successful. However, there was still a problem later on. Once again, the seal was destroyed. This caused the human world's main fighting force to guess that there was a traitor amongst the humans. It was this traitor who helped the Blood clan to fix the seal from the outside. This was why so many Blood clan members had flooded into the human world. This time, the seal was badly damaged. Large numbers of Blood clan members had already started to harm the humans. All the aristocratic families and major powers of the Heavenly Wind continent had gathered their elite disciples to participate in the war against the Blood clan. In the distant Blood Moon Forest, it had already turned into a battlefield. Both sides had suffered casualties. When Fengwu and the rest arrived at the Blood Moon Forest, they could only feel that the forest was filled with blood. They did not know how much blood the soil had absorbed. There were a lot of people who came to the Blood Moon Forest battlefield. The elites of various aristocratic families had gathered here. On the matter of resisting the vampires, all the aristocratic families on the continent had a common understanding. No matter how many conflicts there were between the aristocratic families, when it was time to fight against the vampires, they would unite and not let the vampires take advantage of them. When Fengwu and the rest arrived, they could only stay in the outskirts of the Blood Moon Forest. Originally, those who were stationed here had a room to rest together. However, there were too many people who came, and that room could not accommodate so many people. In the end, those who came could only make do with their own tents. Fengwu and the others didn't arrive early, so they naturally became part of the people who set up the tents. Only a few people of high status could live in that house. The others had to find their own way to rest. Fengwu had just finished setting up the tent when she heard someone calling her. He turned around and saw that it was Yilin, whom he had not seen for a long time. Fengwu, come over here for a moment. My mother said that she has something to tell you. Yilin was also in a dilemma as to whether or not she should pass on the message. Her relationship with Fengwu was not good. Ever since they parted on bad terms at Fengwu's place, she had not seen her again. Although she had not seen Fengwu again, news about Fengwu would often spread. Hearing those news, she felt that she should be doing well. Fengwu remembered that the mother she was talking about was her elder aunt, Feng Tianjiao. Fengwu and Feng Tianjiao did not have much interaction. She could not say that she disliked or liked that aunt. Fengwu thought for a moment, then followed Yilin to Feng Tianjiao's tent. Feng Tianjiao should not have come, but she was afraid that something might happen. She felt that the vampire's movement this time was inextricably linked to Feng Tianqing, so she came. Even if her arrival was not welcomed, so what? Her goal was only Feng Tianqing. She did not care what others thought of her. Elder aunt. Fengwu entered Feng Tianjiao's tent. Seeing Feng Tianjiao dressed in battle armor, she blinked for a moment before calling out expressionlessly. And Feng Tianjiao nodded and responded, "You're still young. You shouldn't have come to this kind of place." Feng Tianjiao suddenly said, "Forget it. Since you're here, just stay here. When the fight starts, don't just charge forward. There are so many people here. How can we let a little girl like you charge forward? Just remember to hide in the back and earn merit points. Also, be careful of your little aunt. She's not as harmless as you think. If she comes to call you, remember to ignore her. If she wants to take you to some desolate place, don't agree." Although Feng Tianjiao did not like her biased brother, nor did she like her father who was biased towards Feng Tianqing, she still took care of her brother Feng Tianqing's son and daughter. She felt that Feng Tianqing would definitely make a big move this time, but she had no idea what this big move was. She could only wait for her to give herself away. While waiting, she was afraid that her silly niece would be fooled. That was why she had her daughter Yilin bring her over and give her a few words of advice. Fengwu blinked. Little aunt? Was she talking about Feng Tianqing? Xiao Wu will remember, elder aunt. Fengwu looked at Feng Tianjiao seriously. Just like that? Wasn't she supposed to say that her little aunt was a good person and would definitely not harm her? Why was this scene so strange? This wasn't right. Feng Tianjiao coughed a little uncomfortably. She was not used to Feng Wu being so easy to talk to. She thought that Feng Wu would not believe her. The reason why she said it was to do her best. As for whether Feng Wu believed her or not, she did not care. After saying a few more words to Feng Wu, Feng Tianjiao had Yi Lin bring her back. Before Feng Wu left, she told her to look for her if she needed anything. Feng Wu obediently agreed. This conversation could be considered pleasant. There were no problems in the middle. After returning to her tent, Feng Wu and the others found a place to eat some dry rations. Then, according to the orders from above, they picked up a map to familiarize themselves with the environment. The whole day unknowingly passed by. They could not even go find Ming Shi. At this time, in an ordinary house on the outskirts of Blood Moon Forest, a few people with extraordinary strength and high status were having a warm meeting. This time, there were teachers from Notre Dame du Starlight, as well as Star Hall's Saint Envoys and elders from other large clans. In addition, there were some higher-ups from the Union. There were more than 10 people in the meeting room. Sitting at the head of the table was the Notre Dame du Starlight's vice principal. This time, the vice principal was the representative of the Notre Dame du Starlight. Naturally, he had to participate in this meeting. The Star Hall had sent out the new 4 Saint Envoys. However, although the 4 Saint Envoys had high status, their seniority was still low. Therefore, this meeting was hosted by the Notre Dame du Starlight's vice principal. Ming Shi sat beside the vice principal without saying a word. Behind Ming Shi stood Skycliff. As Ming Shi's personal bodyguard, Skycliff was naturally here as well. Chapter 508. The Notre Dame du Starlight had sent the new 4 saints. However, although the 4 saints were of high status, their seniority was still too low. Therefore, the meeting was still chaired by the vice principal of the Notre Dame du Starlight. Ming Shi sat beside the vice principal without saying a word. Behind Ming Shi stood Skycliff. As Ming Shi's personal bodyguard, Skycliff was naturally present as well. The Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom had the strongest boundary and seal powers among the 4 great emperors. Therefore, the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom had to send an important person to reseal the Blood Moon Forest. As the future successor of the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom, Ming Shi was sent to represent the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom to reseal the passage to the human world. In ancient times, many races were affected by the Great War between the God Realm and the Demon Realm. From the human race to the blood race to the Azura race, they all suffered a lot of damage. At that time, the Azura King of the Azura race and the Blood Emperor of the Blood race worked together to create a new world. That world was eventually named the Azura world after the Azura race. At that time, the Blood Emperor brought the majority of his race and the Azura race into the Azura world to avoid the Great War. There was also a portion of the Blood race that couldn't bear to leave the human world and live in peace. Because they couldn't bear to leave, there was still a portion of the Blood race that stayed behind. They didn't want to live in a small world. The Blood race in the Blood Moon Forest was the group that chose to stay back. After so many years, these Blood race had also developed. Their race was no longer the same as in ancient times. The current population of the Blood race was several times more than in ancient times. The combat power of the Blood race now couldn't be underestimated. If they were allowed to break out of the seal, the human world would be faced with a great war, especially now that they had mastered the method to avoid the sunlight. An elder representing the Adventurers Guild angrily slammed the table. There must be a traitor among our human race. If we don't find this traitor, even if the boundary is resealed, something will happen again. Elder Roy's words are reasonable. We must find this traitor as soon as possible. Otherwise, we will be attacked from both sides. Elder Heir of the Magicians Guild also spoke. Who is this traitor? Does anyone have any clue? An elder of the Jia clan was also concerned about this issue. Everyone knew that compared to killing vampires, the most important thing now was to find the traitor hiding among them. This traitor was very familiar with the matters of Blood Moon Forest. Moreover, he also knew where the weak point of the barrier was. Such a dangerous person must be found. Otherwise, no one would be at peace, and this battle would cause the human race to fall into chaos. Teacher Feng Tianqing, you've guarded the Blood Moon Forest for so many years. Do you have any suspects? The vice principal asked. This, Feng Tianqing looked at the elders with some difficulty. I do have a suspect, but I hope it's not him. Are you talking about your senior brother, Florence? The vice dean asked. Only a small number of people knew about Florence's problem at that time. Florence had disappeared without a trace, and so had the 4 guardian elders. Feng Tianqing and Florence's master, Samos, had also mysteriously disappeared in the Blood Moon Forest. The people guarding the Blood Moon Forest had all disappeared. In their opinion, those people had most likely met with misfortune. The only one who escaped was Feng Tianqing. As the main suspect in the disappearance of the guardian elders at that time, Florence had been recorded in the Star Hall and the Notre Dame du Starlight's case. Florence's experience had also been investigated clearly. His relationship with a vampire woman was also true. In short, Florence was indeed a major suspect. I don't think it's possible that it's Florence. He left when the boundary was destroyed last time. The boundary that was destroyed this time was fixed by me. It's impossible for him to know where the weak point of the boundary is. At this time, Mingxi suggested something else. Florence was indeed a major suspect, but it did not mean that others were not suspicious. In his opinion, everyone who had participated in the guarding of the Blood Moon Forest was a suspect. They all had the opportunity to come into contact with the Blood Tribe, and no one knew when they would be successfully brainwashed by the Blood Tribe. His Highness Mingxi is right. We can't just focus on one person. Moreover, I don't think Florence has the ability to destroy the boundary this time, another elder said. This elder was already very old and was a half-step warlock sage. At his age, it was already impossible for him to make another breakthrough. This was why he had volunteered to lead a team to the Blood Moon Forest, wanting to fight for his juniors. Immediately after, a few other elders voiced their support for Mingxi's opinion. At the end of the meeting, a few elders who had guarded the Blood Moon Forest in the past were targeted. Although no one said anything, Feng Tianqing knew that she had also become a suspect. After all, although Florence was suspicious, he had gone missing. Feng Tianqing, on the other hand, was the only high-ranking person who survived in the Blood Moon Forest. She was also a suspicious person. However, everyone had only investigated her in private. No one had ever doubted her in front of her. Although no one said it out loud this time, the result was already tacitly understood. It seemed that she would not know about any more important meetings. Feng Tianqing was not worried at all. If they wanted to investigate, then investigate as much as they wanted. She did not believe that they would be able to find anything. If they could really find out, she would not have been allowed to roam freely in the Notre Dame du Starlight for so long. Don't think that she did not know that the people from the Star Hall had arranged for her to be a teacher in the Heartlight Sacred Court so that they could keep an eye on her. She wanted to see what they could find this time since they could not find anything after so long. Of course, Feng Wu and the others did not know about the contents of this meeting. The next day, Feng Wu brought Bao Bao to find Mingxi. She had not seen Mingxi for a long time. She missed him. Mingxi lived in the outskirts of the Blood Moon Forest. It was the house where Feng Tianqing and the others had lived when they were guarding the Blood Moon Forest. During this time of war, Mingxi was still able to live in a house. This was enough to show that Mingxi's identity was precious. Because the people living in this house were all important people, there were many guards outside the door. These guards were wearing the clothes of the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom. At a glance, one could tell that they were people from the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom. Feng Wu did not know the origin of these guards. She only told Mingxi that she had come to find him. Then, when she went downstairs, the guards asked for her name and let her in. When Feng Wu saw Mingxi was reading a book. The degree of damage to the seal this time was much greater than the previous times. Apart from the princes of the blood race, the rest of the blood race could already leave the seal. This time, it was not easy to seal them again. Before sealing them, they had to drive some of the blood race back to the seal in the Blood Moon Forest. If they were directly sealed, then these blood race members would be left in the human world, which was a danger to the human world. Chapter 509. When Feng Wu saw Mingxi was reading a book. This time, the damage to the seal was much greater than the previous times. Other than the princes of the blood race, the rest of the blood race were able to leave the sealed grounds. This time, it was not easy to seal them again. Before sealing them, they had to chase some of the blood race back to the sealed grounds in the Blood Moon Forest. If they were to be sealed directly, these blood race members would be left in the human world, which would be a threat to the human world. Anything that could endanger the Heavenly Wind continent had to be eliminated. Therefore, Mingxi was very busy during this period of time. He was busy researching the problem with the seal. This time, there was a problem with the seal, and it was so strange. Previously, when he sealed it, he had used Xiaochun's purification power to purify all the blood qi that seeped out of the Blood Moon Forest. At the same time, the seal was also strengthened. This time, he did not tell anyone about the weak points of the seal. He did not expect that the seal would still be broken. Moreover, it was broken by someone from the outside. This was what Mingxi could not understand the most. There were not many people in the world who could break the seal that he had set up. Among the known people, there were only a few with such abilities who would not help the blood race. Therefore, the identity of the person who broke the seal was very suspicious. Recently, in order to design a perfect seal, Mingxi had been reading all kinds of ancient books and had made some progress. When Fengwu came in, she saw Mingxi reading the ancient books about the seal. Senior Mingxi. Fengwu slowly walked in front of Mingxi. Every step she took was firm. Her clear eyes revealed a strong sense of attachment. Come over here. Mingxi beckoned to Fengwu. Fengwu obediently walked over. She stood in front of Mingxi and squatted in front of him. She held up his injured hand. That hand still did not have any warmth, but it was no longer stiff and could move slightly. Does it hurt? Fengwu held his hand carefully, as if she was holding a treasure. It doesn't hurt, don't worry. Mingxi patted her head with his other hand and smiled. I miss you. Fengwu looked up at Mingxi and said seriously. She missed him. She missed him every day. Was this what Mingxi meant by love? Fengwu didn't know whether it was true or not. She only knew that Mingxi was a very important person to her. She wanted Mingxi to be Xiaoye's father so that their family could be together forever. This was Fengwu's idea, simple and direct. Mingxi's eyes trembled slightly. I miss you too. Yes, he missed her. He missed her very, very much. Every day when he had nothing to do, he would always think of her expressionless face. That face clearly did not have any expression, but he felt that it was extremely cute. Xiao Wu. Mingxi softly whispered her name. What? Fengwu blinked her large eyes. Her gaze was misty. Will you be my lover? Mingxi realized that his hands were sweating. His heartbeat had also doubled. It was so loud that it seemed to be ringing in his ears. Fengwu looked at Mingxi seriously. Does that mean we can get married after we become lovers? Her voice was filled with anticipation. Marriage? Wasn't this a little too fast? The moment Fengwu returned, the Ajur immediately pestered her. He knew that Fengwu went to look for Mingxi. Ajur didn't think highly of this pair. Mingxi was the future emperor of the Silver Moon ancient nation. His wife would be the future Moon Empress. With Xiao Wu's personality, could she be a good Moon Empress? All right, as long as Mingxi was willing to pamper her, she could live well even if she did nothing but occupy the position of Moon Empress. Wasn't the current Moon Empress a woman who stood aloof from worldly affairs? After giving birth to the youngest prince, Mingxi, she lived alone in a courtyard in the Silver Moon ancient nation. She reared birds and flowers every day. The Moon Emperor would accompany the Moon Empress regularly. The couple's relationship was still very deep. Perhaps Xiao Wu could be like the Moon Empress, living her own life behind closed doors and not caring about anything else. Although he had thought of everything for Fengwu, Mingxi had to accept Fengwu first. Not only did Mingxi have to accept Fengwu, the rest of the people in the Silver Moon ancient nation had to accept her as well. Xiao Wu wasn't an ordinary girl. She had a rough life. Moreover, she had Xiao Yi, this little burden, by her side. Would the royal family of the Silver Moon ancient nation accept her as the future Moon Empress? The possibility of this was quite low. Every time the Ajur thought of the cruel reality, he couldn't bear to see Fengwu and the others. He really didn't want to see Fengwu jump into this whirlpool, but he didn't know how to stop it. In fact, If it wasn't for Ming Shi's status being too high, the two of them wouldn't be unsuitable. Feng Wu didn't know about relationships and was too pure. Ming Shi was smart and had a big heart. If the two of them were together, Ming Shi would definitely be able to take good care of Feng Wu. It was a pity that Ming Shi's status was too high, and Feng Wu already had a child. If Feng Wu wanted to be with Ming Shi, it would be very difficult. The more he thought about it, the more his head hurt. It was too early to think about this now. It wouldn't be too late to think about it when the two of them were together. Ajur had just chatted with Feng Wu for a while when he realized that what he thought was impossible had actually happened. This matter gave Ajur a big fright. The two of them were actually together. Did it have to be so scary? Why didn't there be any signs before this? This was the rhythm of scaring people to death. Ajur could see that Feng Wu was in a good mood. It seemed that she could have a happy ending with Ming Shi. This made her very happy. At this time, Ajur couldn't tell her the concerns in his heart. Forget it. Let Feng Wu be happy for a while. If he said it now, he was afraid that it would only add to Xiao Wu's troubles. After chatting with Feng Wu for a while, Ajur ran back to his tent to digest the fact that Ming Shi and Feng Wu were finally together. After returning to his tent, Ajur sighed for a while. This made his roommates feel very strange. What happened to him? Xiao Wu is finally together with Senior Ming Shi. Ajur sighed and said to his friend who came forward to ask, "Isn't that a good thing?" Feng Wu has always liked Senior Ming Shi. Now that her wish has been fulfilled, Feng Wu will be happy to death. What's there to be happy about? The two of them aren't suitable. I'm afraid that Feng Wu will be hurt in the future. Ajur said, "What's there to worry about? Senior Ming Shi is a person who knows his limits. Since he has decided to be together with Sister Feng Wu, he won't make her sad." In the school, Ming Shi was also one of the few seniors who had always been clean when it came to matters between men and women. He was loved by thousands of female juniors. AI, things aren't that simple. You all don't understand. After saying that, he didn't care about what the people behind him thought and sighed and walked away, leaving behind some dumbfounded roommates. How would we understand if you didn't say it? Chapter 510. Right now, everyone was busy preparing for the upcoming battle. As for Ming Shi and Feng Wu, apart from a few people who were familiar with them, no one really paid attention to them. The Feng clan also sent people over for this battle. The ones who came were Feng Tianqing and Feng Juntian. This pair of father and son represented the Feng clan to come to the Blood Moon Forest. Feng Ting also wanted to perform well in this battle, hoping that the Feng clan would see her in a different light. After Feng Ting came to the Blood Moon Forest, she had always been with Feng Yanran. For some reason, the two of them were getting closer and closer. Feng Tianqing and the rest arrived a day earlier than Feng Wu. However, after arriving, everyone was busy and did not have time to meet. On this day, Feng Tianqing finally took the time to call his daughter over for a meeting. Feng Tianqing was a serious person. Although he loved his daughter dearly, he still found it hard to show a loving expression. Feng Juntian also took after his father. He had always been a serious brother, which was why he was not close to the original body. Brother. When Feng Wu saw that her brother had come to find her, she happily rushed into Feng Juntian's embrace. She even rubbed her head against him like a spoiled child. Feng Juntian stroked his sister's soft hair and brought Feng Wu to the tent that the father and son were staying in together. Originally, Feng Tianqing could have stayed in that house, but he didn't want to, so he set up a tent outside with his son. When Feng Wu arrived, the kitchen maid had just placed the dishes on the table. During this period of time, Feng Tianqing was very busy. He was so busy that he did not have time to take care of his children. It was rare for him to have some free time, so he naturally wanted to have a meal with his children. Feng Wu obediently called her father and sat beside Feng Tianqing with Feng Juntian. The family started a silent lunch. This meal was very quiet. No one spoke at all. Feng Tianqing wanted to talk to his daughter, but unfortunately, Feng Wu girl did not cooperate. From the moment she sat down, she had been fighting with the food in her bowl. Other than eating, she did not even bother to look at her father. This made Feng Tianqing feel a little heartbroken. Could it be that his daughter no longer loved him? Feng Juntian, on the other hand, didn't think too much about it. From time to time, he would pick up some food for his sister. The two siblings didn't like to talk, so a glance was enough for them to communicate. Xiao Yi is slowly growing up. It's time for you to consider your future. Your grandfather has selected some good moral characters from the nobles of the ancient Eastern Kingdom for you. You can meet them when you go back next time. We'll settle down after you've selected a suitable one. Originally, in Heavenly Wind Continent, everyone was used to marrying late and having children late. However, Fengwu's situation was different. She already had a son at such a young age. If she did not marry off before her son grew up, it would be even harder for Xiaoyi to marry when he grew up. After all, the younger a child was, the easier it was to raise them. When they grew up and understood things, it was inevitable that they would have some thoughts in their hearts if they knew that they were not their biological children. Therefore, in Feng Tianqing's opinion, he wanted to marry Feng Wu off before Xiaoyi grew up and knew who he was. Unfortunately, Feng Tianqing didn't know that his little grandson already knew how to recognize people. He even knew how to speak. Feng Wu didn't quite understand what this meant. Her large eyes were filled with question marks. What did he mean by suitable people? What did she want those people for? She didn't understand. Father wants to find a suitable marriage partner for you. When you find Xiaoyi, you can also have a father. You don't have to worry that the person you choose will treat Xiaoyi badly. Our entire Feng family will be your backing in the future, so you don't have to worry. With us around, no matter which man you choose, he won't dare to treat you badly. Feng Juntian saw that Feng Wu didn't understand, so he straightforwardly announced Feng Tianqing's plan. Feng Wu ate the last mouthful of food and looked at Feng Tianqing with her large eyes as she said seriously, "There's no need. Xiaoyi has a father. I've already found someone to marry." "You have a boyfriend? Which family's brat has such good taste to take a fancy to my daughter?" Actually, Feng Tianqing was a little worried that the man might have bad intentions. Bu Wu was currently taking care of a child. If there was a phoenix man who wanted to use Xiao Wu to reach the heavens in a single step, it wouldn't be impossible. Although he thought so in his heart, he didn't show it on his face. "It's Senior Ming Shi. Senior and I are now lovers. I will marry Ming Shi in the future," Feng Wu said very seriously. However, Feng Juntian and Feng Tianqing felt as if they were struck by lightning. Who did they just hear? Wasn't Ming Shi the name of the future Moon Emperor of the Silver Moon Ancient Nation? Could it be that they had the same name? That must be it. Although they admitted that their daughter was very cute, as the successor of an empire, how could he be dating a woman who already had a child? How could they believe this? Hehe, Xiaowu, you really know how to pick people. This person has the same name as Prince Ming Shi of the Silver Moon Ancient Nation. Hehe. Feng Tianqing laughed dryly a few times to cover up his discomfort. Feng Tianqing and Feng Juntian looked at each other. They both felt their little hearts trembling. Senior Ming Shi seems to be the prince of the Silver Moon Ancient Nation, Feng Wu said. It can't be. It's actually the same person. No, absolutely not. I don't agree with you two being together. Xiao Wu, that kind of person from the royal family isn't a good person. He loves to play with ignorant girls like you the most. So you should immediately cut off all ties with him and don't have anything to do with him anymore. Feng Tianqing almost shouted. He didn't want his precious daughter to be played with by a member of the royal family. At the end of the day, Feng Tianqing didn't believe that Ming Shi would sincerely date his daughter. He was afraid that Feng Wu's feelings would be played by someone else. When the time came, Ming Shi would just clap his hands and leave. How would his daughter live on her own? When that time came, Feng Wu would be pointed at by many people. What if Xiao Wu couldn't take it and carried the child to death? Feng Tianqing's imagination was becoming more and more ridiculous. Ming Shi still didn't know that he had mysteriously become a scumbag. Father is right. Prince Ming Shi's status is too high. If you were to be with him, you would face a lot of pressure. His parents and clansmen might not accept you and Xiaoyi. Feng Juntian said with a serious expression. Who knew that Feng Wu would say, "Why do I have to make Ming Shi's parents accept me? What does this have to do with his parents?" Feng Wu blinked her eyes in confusion. This girl never knew about these things. Bai Lianfeng also didn't tell her about this problem. Before he came to this world, Bai Lianfeng thought that as long as he was alive, no one would be able to bully his disciple. As for whether or not they would approve of his son being with his disciple, he was never worried. As long as Fengwu took a fancy to him, he would just snatch him back to Mount Yuhua and make him her husband. He didn't believe that anyone would dislike his disciple. Chapter 511. Unfortunately, Bai Lianfeng would never have imagined that she and her little disciple would transmigrate to this alternate world. Bai Lianfeng never told Fengwu that if two people wanted to be together, they needed their parents to make an engagement. Therefore, Fengwu seriously lacked common knowledge in this aspect. In her mind, as long as Mingxi accepted to be Xiaoye's father and agreed to marry her, then the two of them could be together. All of this was between her and Mingxi. It had nothing to do with anyone else. However, Feng Juntian and his son's thoughts were not so simple. Mingxi was a prince, and he would be the future Moon Emperor. His marriage would be simple. Although the four emperors had the freedom to choose their spouses, they would not choose a woman who had already given birth to a child. Not to mention that no one would choose that. Even if they did, they would not be accepted by the royal family. After knowing that the person with Fengwu was Mingxi, the Feng father and son were worried to death. Fengwu thought that this was only between her and Mingxi, but they knew that things were not that simple. Would the Moon Emperor and Moon Empress accept that their future daughter-in-law had a child before marriage? If they were adamant against Fengwu marrying Prince Mingxi, then what would happen to his daughter? Sigh, there was no end to his worries. Feng Tianqing felt that he would definitely age a few years because of this matter. Since he could not get through to Fengwu, the Feng father and son angrily ran to find Mingxi after eating with Fengwu. Mingxi was studying the sealing catalog in his study. He did not expect to see Feng Tianqing and Feng Juntian walk in. Their expressions were very ugly. It was obvious that they did not come with good intentions. Even if she knew their identities, he could guess what they were here for. Uncle Feng, Brother Juntian, please take a seat. Mingxi put down the book in his hand and stood up from the chair. We won't be sitting. The two of us just want to ask Prince Mingxi a question. Although Feng Tianqing had some thoughts about Mingxi, he did not want to offend him verbally. No matter how angry he was, he knew that this young man was the future Moon Emperor. He was not someone the Feng family could afford to offend. Uncle Feng, please go ahead. Mingxi smiled good-naturedly. That smile was faint, but it was as beautiful and gentle as the moonlight. Unfortunately, neither Feng Juntian nor Feng Tianqing were in the mood to admire her beauty. I heard that your highness is quite close to my daughter, Xiaowu? Feng Tianqing asked tactfully. Indeed, I am dating Xiaowu. Mingxi did not beat around the bush with him and directly admitted his relationship with Fengwu. Since your highness is so direct, we won't beat around the bush. Feng Juntian spoke. My younger sister, Fengwu, is just an ordinary girl. I'm afraid she is not compatible with your highness status. Please keep your distance from my younger sister. Mingxi frowned slightly. But what did Mingxi do wrong? Your highness is overthinking. My younger sister is lacking in many areas and is not worthy of your highness, Feng Juntian said. That's right. I believe that with your highness status, it should not be difficult for you to find someone better than my daughter. My Xiaowu is not suitable for the imperial family. Please let my daughter go, your highness. Feng Tianqing stepped forward and said, no matter how good the other girls in this world are, they are not Xiaowu. Mingxi only wants to be with Xiaowu. Mingxi looked at the Feng father and son seriously and made his promise. Then what about your family? Will they accept Xiaowu? Do you know that Xiaowu has a child? As the future Moon Emperor, can you accept raising someone else's child? Feng Juntian said. Xiaoyi is very cute. Royal father and royal mother will like him. Mingxi smiled when he thought of that little dumpling. No matter how cute Xiaoyi is, he is not your and Xiaowu's child. Will Moon Emperor and Moon Empress really not mind? Feng Tianqing did not believe it. If Feng Juntian brought back a woman who had given birth to a child and said that he wanted to marry her and raise her son, Feng Tianqing would definitely be furious. It would be strange if he did not kill the mother and son. Putting himself in their shoes, how could the great Moon Emperor do something that even he could not do? Stop joking. They won't mind. Ming Shi said with certainty. I'll listen to your nonsense. Feng Tianqing scolded angrily when he heard this obviously irresponsible nonsense. Father. Feng Juntian pulled his father's arm. This person was the future Moon Emperor. He could not scold him. Feng Tianqing also knew that his words had offended this future Moon Emperor, but he did not plan to apologize. He could already seduce his daughter, but he was not allowed to scold him. Mingxi pretended that he did not hear anything. The other party was the father of the girl he truly liked. He naturally could not get angry with Feng Tianqing. Uncle Feng, do the two of you know who Xiaoye's father is? Mingxi suddenly asked. We don't know either. Are you trying to say that Xiaoye is your son? Feng Juntian thought of this possibility and widened his eyes in shock. Even Feng Tianqing stared at him without letting go. His eyes were still filled with disbelief. However, Mingxi shook his head. No, I am not Xiaoye's biological father. Since you are not, why are you asking us this? Do you know Xiaoye's biological father? Feng Juntian guessed. Mingxi shook his head again. I don't know Xiaoye's biological father either. Then what did you mean by that? Was it fun to tease them? The Feng father and son could not help but glare at him. They felt that he was doing it on purpose. This person was too vile. Chapter 512. When the Feng father and son walked out of Ming Shi's temporary study, they were dumbfounded. Who could tell them why the Elf King had become his grandson? It didn't make sense. During the Great War of Gods and Demons in ancient times, the Elf King had disappeared from the world in order to strengthen the seal. Everyone said that the Elf King had returned to nature. Even the Tree of Life had withered. There were no more elves in this world. Legend had it that the Elf King was an innate god. He was benevolent, kind, and friendly. He was the first god to be born in this world after the god of creation left. Other than the descendants of the god of creation, no other god was as honorable as him. However, such an honorable existence had used up all of his power in the Great War 10,000 years ago. That Great War was not the Great War of Gods and Demons. Instead, it was a power from the outside world that invaded this plane. At that time, the plane's barrier was destroyed, and many creatures from the outside world came to this world. They killed everyone they saw, and countless creatures were killed. In order to protect the world's peace, the gods invaded and only drove away those creatures from the outside world. The world's barrier was still unable to be restored. At that time, the Elf King appeared. He used up all of his divine power to completely restore the world's barrier. From then on, peace was restored to the world. The Elf King disappeared from the world forever. Not only the Elf King, but even the Elf King's tree of birth, the tree of life, withered. The other elves also disappeared with the Elf King. From then on, no one on the continent had seen elves. Even if elves occasionally appeared on the continent, they were only mixed-blooded elves and humans. They were not pure-blooded elves. The pure-blooded elves seemed to only exist in myths and legends. They had long disappeared in the long river of history. But now, Mingxi actually told him that the Elf King was still alive and had become his grandson. This was a joke, right? It had to be a joke. Because Xiaoye's background was too shocking, Feng Juntian and his son said that they needed some peace and quiet. Don't ask them who peace and quiet was. Feng Wu felt that her father and brother had been very strange recently. They liked to come to her and ask her to bring Xiaoye out for them to see. Xiaoye was naturally brought along by Feng Wu, but he was usually locked in the interspatial ring. Only when Feng Wu was free would she let him out. Now that Feng Juntian and Feng Tianqing were so interested in Xiaoye, there were two more nannies who could take care of the child for free. If it were other people, they would definitely be suspicious. Why would she suddenly treat my son so well? Could it be that there was some conspiracy? The Feng Wu girl did not think that way. She was just happy that someone could help take care of the little bun. Although this little guy didn't like to cry, he was very clingy. Ever since he could speak, he liked to talk to people and ask questions. Feng Wu was not a talkative person. Now that she had transformed into a little chatterbox, Feng Wu only wanted to avoid her. Fengwu girl thought, son, can we be a quiet little bun? With Feng Juntian and Feng Tianqing appearing from time to time, Fengwu was finally free. Even when she slept at night, there was someone to take care of the child. She didn't have to be disturbed by the little bun's questions from time to time. The Fengwu girl was very satisfied and welcomed the two cheap nannies. After knowing the identity of the little bun, the father and son no longer had to worry about whether Fengwu would be disliked by the royal family of the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom. They had already started to discuss whether they should prepare a dowry for Fengwu. Fengwu was still unaware of this. Perhaps to her, the identity of the little bun was never important. She only needed to know that the little bun came from her stomach. Fengwu told Mingxi the strange things about her father and brother as a story. When Mingxi heard it, he only patted her head and smiled. Xiao Wu, when you graduate, we'll get married. Mingxi gently hugged the little thing in his arms and said gently, who knew that Fengwu would frown. But it's still many years before I graduate. It'll be so long. By then, I'll be an old lady. There had never been a girl who hadn't married after 20 years of age under Silver Moon Mountain. In a few more years, she would be an old lady. Thinking of this, Fengwu was overjoyed. Can we do it quickly? She asked seriously. Mingxi was helpless. This little girl dared to say anything. Couldn't she act a little bashful? These peaceful days didn't last for long. The vampires officially launched a war against the human race. The humans and vampires were fighting every day. Just like its name, the Blood Moon Forest was filled with the smell of blood every day. The smell of blood grew thicker by the day. The humans suffered many casualties, but the vampires also lost many of their clansmen. In the past 2 days, both sides suffered losses. Fengwu was assigned to the rear and didn't join the battle at the front lines. Many of the second-year students were assigned to support the rear. Their task was to take care of the injured soldiers, cook, and deliver meals. Although it didn't sound like much work, there were so many people here. Every day was a busy day. Fengwu could only put Little Bun in her spatial ring. She put him in there for a few days and didn't let Little Bun out. Fortunately, Little White accompanied him inside and didn't let him go hungry. Like Fengwu, there were a few other girls who were assigned to do logistics work at the rear. Fengwu knew a few of them. There were Feng Ting, Feng Yanran, Lin, Rika, Annika, Zilda, Diane, Irene, Zicheng, Eve, and Zicheng's new friend, Nellie. If Shozo saw Nellie, he would be shocked. Wasn't Nellie the female warlock saint who hated Zicheng to death during the Age of Chaos? She was the pitiful girl whose mind was controlled by Zicheng and caused the destruction of her family. Before Shozo came back, he promised Nellie to stop her from getting close to Zicheng. He didn't want her to repeat her tragic fate. Before Shozo came back, he promised to find her and stop her from getting close to Zicheng. Who would have thought that fate would still send Nellie to Zicheng? Although the time they got to know each other was delayed, they still became friends. From the interaction between the two, it could be seen that Nellie had a good impression of Zicheng as a friend. Irene looked at the interaction between Nellie and Zicheng and thought about how to stop Nellie from falling into Zicheng's hands. This was a problem. Bao Bao sat on Fengwu's head and flapped his wings. Bao Bao wasn't interested in the war between the human race and the blood race. Fengwu helped wash the vegetables seriously. After experiencing Fengwu's cooking skills, no one dared to ask her to cook again. They would rather eat grass on an empty stomach than eat Fengwu's food. People would die. They would be poisoned to death by Fengwu before they could die in the hands of the blood race. Chapter 5:13. Bao Bao sat on Fengwu's head and flapped his wings from time to time. Bao Bao had no interest in the war between humans and vampires. Fengwu helped wash the vegetables seriously. After experiencing Fengwu's cooking skills once, no one dared to ask her to cook again. They would rather eat grass on an empty stomach than eat Fengwu's food. That would kill them. They would probably be poisoned to death by Fengwu before they could die in the hands of the vampires. From then on, Fengwu was assigned to other jobs besides washing vegetables. She could no longer cook. Irene was now a little troubled. What could she do to make Nellie stay away from Zicheng? Because she and Zicheng were not on good terms, Even if Nellie was on good terms with Zicheng, she would not pay attention to her anymore. This was not easy to handle. Rubbing her chin, Irene thought of a few plans. She wanted to come up with a plan to test the effect. She did not let Xiazhua down. Today, the sky was filled with red light and the moon was as red as blood. The blood-red moon was the characteristic of the blood moon forest. Only in this place could the blood-red moon be seen. The red moon was the symbol of the vampires. Some people said that the red moon represented the source of the vampires' power. As for whether it was true or not, only the vampires themselves knew. Ah! Bite it, quickly bite it. Feng Tianqing stuffed a brocade handkerchief into Feng Yinran's mouth, afraid that she would bite her tongue. Feng Yinran's forehead was full of cold sweat. Every inch of her skin was in pain. Even her bones were in pain. The two bloodlines in her body were constantly rejecting each other, roaring and roaring in her body. Neither was willing to merge with the other. This immense pain that made her want to die immediately had been plaguing her for many years. Recently, the phenomenon of the rejection of her bloodline had become more and more serious. This pain had slowly increased from once a year to once a month, and now she would experience it once every few days. About an hour later, Feng Yinran looked like she had been fished out of the water. With a weak face, she put on the clothes that were messed up because of the pain. Feng Tianqing fed her water and a bottle of recovery potion with a pained expression. After drinking the medicine, her complexion looked much better. "Mom, I can't hold on any longer." Feng Yinran leaned pitifully in Feng Tianqing's arms. The pain just now had made her unable to exert any strength. Even after drinking the medicine, she still could not recover. "Don't be afraid, it'll be fine. Mommy will think of a way. You'll be fine, baby." Feng Tianqing's eyes flashed as if she had made up her mind. On a certain night, a scream pierced through the sky. Nellie took a few steps back in fear and bumped into Irene, who had just run over after hearing the noise. "What's going on? What happened? What happened? Who's shouting?" Did something happen? What the hell happened? Does anyone know? A group of boys ran over from not far away. They had just returned from a battle and were changing shifts with the other warriors to rest. They had no choice but to take shifts. The bloodlings would harass them from day to night. If they did not take shifts, who knew if the bloodlings would take advantage of them? They had just fallen asleep when they were woken up by a scream. The boys did not look too good. If someone was screaming just because they saw a little bug, the boys probably would not let it go so easily. Nellie was still screaming. She was probably so scared that her entire head was buried between her legs. She was still squatting there and screaming, with no intention of stopping. "Stop screaming. What's going on?" Aaron pulled Nellie up and gave her a backhanded slap. Although this action was a little rough, the effect was very obvious. Nellie had already regained her consciousness and was no longer as muddle-headed as she was before. "There. Feng Ting. Feng Ting is dead." Nellie trembled as she pointed at the bushes a few steps away. The same guy immediately ran over and saw a corpse hiding behind the shrubbery. There wasn't a trace of blood on the corpse, and the entire corpse was dry and flat without any water. It was obvious that this was the work of the blood breeds. How could a bloodlings come to our human camp? These bloodlings are too unscrupulous. They can even sneak into our human camp. Can we sleep peacefully in the future? I'm afraid not. What if a bloodling sneak in and suck your blood the moment you fall asleep? The people below discussed animatedly. Soon, the higher-ups stepped in to investigate this matter. They also sent people to investigate the entire camp, afraid that a bloodlings had sneaked into the human camp. In the end, one of the blood breeds ran in and was caught in the forest not far away. The blood breeds didn't say anything about how he ran in and self-destructed without hesitation. The humans did not get anything out of the bloodling's self-destruction. The only person who knew what had happened was probably the only witness, Nellie. Nellie honestly told them everything she knew. It turned out that tonight, Nellie and Feng Ting had agreed to go to the river to wash clothes together. Halfway through, she accidentally dropped the basin into the water. The wooden basin floated along with the water and was about to float away. Nellie quickly chased after the basin, wanting to save the clothes. When she returned, She found that Feng Ting was not waiting for her at the original place. Nellie was a little angry that Feng Ting was not being kind enough to wait for her, even though she knew that she had gone to chase after the basin. After complaining for a while, she continued to wash the clothes. She sped up when she was washing clothes alone. After washing the clothes, she carried the wooden basin and was about to go back. Unexpectedly, when she passed by the bushes, she saw that Feng Ting was already dead. Nellie did not expect Feng Ting to die here. At that time, she screamed in fright. Everyone knew what happened after that. Nellie didn't know when Feng Ting had died. When she returned with the wooden basin, Feng Ting was already dead. Nellie did not know anything else. Feng Ting's death caused a panic in the camp. Everyone was afraid that a bloodlings would suddenly come out and suck their blood. During this period of time, the camp was even more heavily guarded. Even in the camp, no one dared to be alone, afraid that they would become the target of the bloodlings. The people in the camp were anxious, and the higher-ups were not calm either. Feng Ting was the daughter of a concubine of the Feng family. Although she was not very favored, she was still a child of the Feng family. The death of a member of the Feng family in the camp was considered a big deal. The Feng family was a super family. They had a long history and had a very high status in the ancient Eastern country. It was not a small family. The death of a concubine's daughter was nothing. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.